Hey, Mike.
Hey Mike, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. Who are we talking to today?
Today we're going to talk to a guy named Mai Young. He was referred to us by Robbie Ryan, and he's up in Seattle. So let's see what's going on the West Coast.
Let's hop to it.
Mike's on Mike's. Yeah.
Hi Mai.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. I'm Mike Nimmix.
I'm Mike Dow.
Hi, fellas. Hi, Mikes.
Thanks for joining us. Yeah.
I see that your name is actually Michael.
Yeah, my real name is Michael.
Okay.
Michael Young is my full name, so my initials are MY. So
Oh, okay. That
Oh,
makes a little more sense.
that's kind
But
of a coincidence more than the reality, but we'll just stick with that story.
do people ever call you Mai?
Oh yeah, all my friends call me My, and then several people I work for call me My, and then but and other people call me Michael. It's kind of my family calls me Michael. Some family calls me My. Yeah, yeah. No, I'm definitely My.
Okay.
so Robbie Ryan, aka Robbie Wawasabi,
Yeah.
told us we should talk to you. And so how do you know him?
I met Robbie in high school.
Oh
I just
wow.
moved down to Plano from Norman. I moved a lot as a kid, so and I think I was in geometry class. Like this is like the first week of school, and Robbie comes in wearing a MIDI cable as a belt, and he's carrying a keyboard magazine. And I saw him talking to somebody in front of me, and I was like, okay, I gotta meet this guy somehow. So I kind of eavesdropped and dropped a drum machine name or something, and then we immediately started talking about synths and music and stuff like that. So I've known him for a long time.
I obviously went to the wrong high school. Okay.
That is a very Robbie story there with a MIDI cable belt
It was
that he
pretty
probably
crazy.
made himself.
Oh yeah,
High
Plano.
school in Plano. Okay.
just for 2 years. I started in high school in Norman, Oklahoma, but I grew up in like outside of Denver.
Man,
Got
you
it.
lived all the cool places.
Yeah, Norman was definitely the coolest place to live in Oklahoma. I don't know,
Yeah.
Plano was
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Eh,
But
you know.
we'd always go down to Deep Ellum and wherever Fish Dance and Arcadia were. What is that? Greenville?
Yeah, that's Greenville.
Yeah.
Like Detour.
Yes, Detour. Yeah, all those places.
That's funny.
When did the music bug kind of sting you as a kid or whenever?
Yeah, so I think I was always interested in music. Growing up, my dad would play the acoustic guitar and sing songs to us and stuff. And then my grandma was a pipe organist at her church, so she had like the big Hammond, and it was like a treat to go play the big Hammond.
Yeah.
When I was about seventh grade, my friends and I started, doing the whole new wave thing, and we were skaters, and I was terrible at skateboarding, so we started tossing around the idea of maybe starting a band. I think we heard like the Dead Milkmen, and we were like, oh, we could do that, and so we bought synths and guitars and stuff, and that was the first band. It was called the Bloody Earmuffs. And then I moved to Norman shortly after we started the band. So we had to do like the remote band thing. But I had family in Denver. So every time I'd go to Denver or they'd come to visit me, we would just buckle down and work on songs and make tapes and stuff like that. So probably seventh grade. For my first synth.
What was your first synth?
It was a Casio CZ5000. It's pretty sweet. And it had a sequencer.
Ah, yeah. Now, when you say sequencer, what would it just record in the notes that you would play and then you couldn't do anything with them editing wise, or
You,
was it
so kind of
think it was a step editor, wasn't it?
had both. So you could do
okay?
real time or step, and it
Oh,
laid it out with 8 tracks. So I could
oh
do like
wow.
a repeating step pattern and then turn it on and off. So what I would do is like for choruses or whatever, I would just really quickly flip over to the other tracks that supported those things. It couldn't quantize in real time, but the step right, you could program in all your notes. So that kind of taught me how to do rhythms and stuff using, eighth notes and then a rest and then, all that kind of stuff. But a lot of it was just experimenting and coming up with a cool pattern. But
Right.
the programming on it was pretty good because it was like way easier than FM. Like the layout made more sense. It was set up a little bit more like an analog. So I did program it a lot. And that's kind of how I started programming. And then I got a D110 and that like that was like a big upgrade for me.
Do you still have that?
The CZ5000?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in my closet. I don't use
Nice.
it. It's like I turned it on the other day and I was like, ugh, it's seen better days. And it's like the sounds in it are they're okay, but I had used that thing. I mean, I think I stopped using that like when I was 30. So I've used it enough, right? It's like it's hard to be inspired by the sounds on it. But it's cool and I like hearing it in songs. Like I think Vince Clarke used a little bit of the CZ, so sometimes I can hear like, oh, I can tell that's a CZ here. It just has a certain kind of
It cuts through all the other stuff.
totally. Yeah. Yeah. But so I have that. I have all my synths. I
Nice.
just don't
wow.
have them up. Yeah. Like my D110's up there, but I don't think I'd ever use that for anything unless I was really looking for like a general MIDI sound that but you can get all that now with software so easy. So
And you're okay with that. You're okay with the new software synths.
yeah, I mean I use a lot of software synths. I'll write in software synths with my writing partner, Brian. And then when we kind of get through the song and all the MIDI and all that stuff we like, we go back and then start, finding sounds on like the analog stuff or better software and really focus in on the sound design part.
What Mike was getting at is we've talked to people, and some
That's
people
pretty
are
cool.
totally in the box, and some people were in the box a little bit or some, and
Mhm.
then they've
Yeah.
rejected it because of continual software upgrade, and you upgrade an OS, and all of a sudden your old sounds don't work, and they're not going to get
Yeah.
upgraded, and they're just not into that anymore.
For anything in the box, software wise, what I'll do is once the song is kind of complete, I'll make sure to record it. So when I have to go back to work on the song, like for a live track or do something else with the song, I still have the actual track of that sound. But yeah, I've lost software sounds and stuff through upgrades. It's frustrating.
So when you say you record it, you record the stems of
Right.
that
Yeah.
individual synth or whatever. Okay. Cool. Yeah.
I have to do that anyway because we record in Jupe Jupe, we record in studios typically. So we'll do all the synth stuff here and I'll export everything as separate tracks and I use Cubase. And then when we go to the studio, and the studios are always in Pro Tools, so they'll upload those tracks out of Cubase, and those are just stems.
So that's interesting. You're making this too easy. So you use Cubase, but when you go to studios, they're in Pro Tools, and
Yeah.
you've obviously decided, yeah, Pro Tools doesn't do it for me. So what's the reasoning?
I don't know because we started doing it in Cubase and Brian has a copy of Cubase and I have a copy of Cubase and that's just what we're used to. I mean, I think Cubase is really easy for MIDI stuff and
Yeah.
VST, and we're so used to that interface. Pro Tools seems a little complicated to me. It seems more like for different routing and all that kind of stuff. And when I'm writing, I don't want to mess with that. I want to write, right? So,
Right.
And like I said, it's usually just MIDI until we turn things into the actual synthesizers.
Do you start with like a template in Cubase, like where you're like, this is pretty much you open a previous project, or is it like always brand new and blank, and you're like, all right, here comes this synth and that synth?
It's usually blank because I mean, when we write songs more traditionally. So we'll start off. The band will usually start off jamming, and we'll just go to a practice space, or now we're doing it here with headphones, and just kind of come up with some riffs and some feels, and then we'll go through all those and figure out which ones were kind of cool, and then we hand those off to Brian and I, and then Brian and I will start with no template, nothing. We'll just start with a guitar or a synthesizer and the voice and write the songs around the chords and the voice. Then we'll start, arranging from there once we figured out that we have got a voice line and chords that we really like. And we've just found that to be a much more successful method for doing the kind of music we do. Because we're not making techno, we're making pop. So that works for us.
That's good that y'all figured it out.
Yeah, and we do different things too, but that seems to be like the standard boilerplate thing. And if we were organized, we'd have a template. but we're not. So because we're just like, let's get this down quick. Okay, how do we get this down before we forget it? Or
I want to rewind the clock a little bit. You had after the CZ5000,
Yeah.
the CZ5000, yeah.
then you had a DT100. Is that the small Roland?
Oh
The
yeah,
DT100
the D110.
or
So that was
D110?
like, yes, after they made the D50, they created all these kind of like more consumer level linear synthesizers, which were just like PCM samples. Wow, that's just our whole
Yeah.
little trick there. So, and so they had the D10, the D20, which had a sequencer, and then they had the rack mount version, which was the D110. And I already had the CZ5000, so it was fine just to use that as a controller. The only problem is that the CZ5000 was not velocity sensitive. So sometimes I would, like in high school, if I was working on music, like I would borrow my friend Jeff's keyboards, or if he was over and we were working on music, because we had our own little bands and stuff. So I would borrow his like K1, just and I was like, oh man, velocity's so cool.
Right. No, I remember going through that. You would get my first keyboard was also a Casio, but
Oh,
it
cool.
had no MIDI on it, but it did
Oh,
have
wow.
a record function.
Sampler.
And no, that, well, okay. Yeah, you're right. The SK1, the little tiny sampler was my first keyboard, but the
cool, yeah.
CT550 had like little yellow drum pads and stuff on it, but it didn't have any,
Yeah, I
any
remember
MIDI.
that one.
And
Yeah.
so, then you're like, oh, wait a second. I want to hook this up to other things. I need a keyboard with MIDI. And then you get it. And then you're like, oh, wait, I can't, there's no velocity on this. And then after you get one with velocity, you're like, wait a second, there's a thing called aftertouch, and you just kind of keep falling into this. Oh, and then there's this thing. Yeah. I remember that.
And now they're making
weighted
like
keys.
Oh yeah, weighted keys. Yeah, I have semi-weighted keys on my Virus here, and that's a great keyboard as far as like the way it feels.
Yeah, that's the other thing is the feel behind it. And I remember going to a friend's house and I'm thinking, oh, well, here's one with weighted keys. And then you think, well, it's either like a piano or it's not, until I played 100-year-old Steinway. And those things, you have to be a lumberjack. But yeah, it's funny.
Or like-
the different feel,
Yeah.
it definitely helps with the creative process.
Yeah, I have a Rhodes that I bought off, or I think I did like a website for him. This is like years ago for one of my friends, and he gave me the Rhodes, and it hadn't been serviced in a long time, and like it was so hard to play.
Yeah.
And then I had this dude come in and service it, and then afterwards I was like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be like. Of course, like I was like imagining all these like jazz guys with like these massive Popeye
Right,
fingers. Yeah, I was like, they're so good and powerful.
Right.
So how did you get from the Casio and the D110? I was still in high school.
That was still in high school, yeah. And then I think my next synth I got, I also had a Terra 505, but, and then the band that I was in Denver, they had like an Alesis HR16. So we would use that more when we would record, because the 505 was pretty limited. And the hand clap's nice, but not everything on that drum machine is fantastic, and it's so identifiable.
Yeah.
So we would use the HR16, which is also identifiable. But yeah, so then I think my next synth was when I was a senior. I got the Proteus keyboard, which because at the time, this is like right. I was still in high school and I was listening to a lot of like goth stuff, so I wanted things that sounded like The Cure and more sample sounding things. So that was a nice like addition to having the synth sounds I already had from the other two. And then in college, I bought a sampler, the ESI 32. I used that for a while, and then finally, after I graduated from college in Austin, I found a Jupiter 6 and I bought that one.
Nice. Very
for
nice.
$600.
Wow.
I now look back, I'm like, that's insane. But and I've used that thing is great. That's a.
You want to sell it?
It's nope.
I give you 600.
Never.
That was a
601.
that synth is really good. Like I know like it's not as pretty as the Jupiter 8, but it's very versatile and you can do some really cool things with it. It's got cool sounds.
The Proteus that you had, was that a full keyboard
Uh-huh.
or was that rack mount?
The Proteus keyboard, I can't remember what it was called, but it had the Proteus 1 sounds and an effects processor and very limited sound editing. Like it didn't have a filter really. I think it had a cutoff filter of some sort. And it's called it like brightness or something, and you could like kind of tone down the sounds, but it was very limiting. So yeah.
Was it kind of small and like maybe not that many keys, and then also like not that many buttons on it? I think I remember it.
It had 5 octaves,
Oh, okay.
and it had buttons like these blue buttons. It actually looked very emu. It looked very
Okay.
like Miami Vice 80s, and it had kind of a rounded top.
Then I am
Um,
misremembering that. Yep. But I do remember them having one. Yeah, like one keyboard.
I don't know what happened to emu. Maybe they got purchased by somebody.
Oh, yeah, that sounds familiar. That's right. There was like a sound card back
Sound
then.
Blaster, whoever that company was that made Sound Blaster.
But you could get one. I
That
think you
was
could get like
Creative
an
Labs.
Creative Labs, they bought them.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because yeah, you're right. Because after that, they were trying to keep rocking, and they said now with
Hmm.
Emu or Proteus DSP, blah 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 blah. Because
Yeah.
the original MIDI chips sounded like an 8-bit video game.
Right.
Yeah.
You got this
Yes.
Sound Blaster 16-bit 44.1, and you play a MIDI file through it, and it sounds like a calculator.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Roland made a sound card that had all of their sound canvas sounds in it, and I had one. I
Oh,
think it was
cool.
called the
Yeah.
Roland Rap 10. I just recently looked it up. Evidently, it's a collector's item. I don't have it anymore, but I think I gave it to Goodwill or something. Like, because I couldn't. It was so old, I couldn't put it in the computers.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's
But
the problem.
it probably had a lot of the same sounds as the D110. I kind of feel like that MT32 D
Yeah,
series stuff, they
right.
were really pushing that like even on the consumer level. One of
Hmm.
my friends in high school, Susan, she had like her family had one of those hooked up to their computer, and like when they would play video games on their
Yeah,
PC, it would play those, and I was like, oh, I know these sounds. Like these are the sounds of my synth. So that was pretty cool.
it made all those 386, 486 games real fun to play. But like
Right.
you had to have a crazy setup though. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it would you almost had to have another mixer to like whatever. It was
Yeah.
nuts.
That's funny. I vaguely remember that stuff.
Yeah.
I just looked up the Emu Proteus. I don't know. Was it the MPS?
Yeah, the MPS, that's it.
Okay. So yeah, it's 5 octaves, and it's got the big hump in the middle with the little
That's
blue
it.
LCD screen. Yep. Okay. Very
and,
cool.
and it was multi-timbral just like the D110. So you could I mean I could write songs. At that time I didn't have MIDI computer set up yet until like I think I was a sophomore.
So what were you sequencing on with that thing? Because that didn't have a sequencer.
No, so after I graduated from the very limited CZ5000 sequencer, when I got the D110, or right before I got the D110, I bought a Korg SQD-1, and I still have that. So it was it was a 2-track. It was like one of those ones you have to bounce, but
Oh,
it did have, it was a weird way of writing, but you could still edit things a bit because everything was kind of every track or whatever was kind of assigned to a MIDI channel. So once you could kind of go into that MIDI channel's track and do a little bit of
A
editing.
little
And
step editing.
yeah, you could do step editing, and you could quantize as long as you quantized going in. You couldn't quantize after you recorded.
oh,
Interesting.
So you got to
Okay.
know this was going to be quantized.
yeah. Gotta be committed. Gotta put a
You
ring
got-
on it.
That probably lent to some creative songwriting because of the limitations, if you want to think of it that way.
Yeah, well, and most of the stuff I was doing with the band in Denver was with a band. So, we didn't have a drummer, but we had bass and guitars and vocals and then we had the synths. So we were still writing kind of in a group setting and writing traditionally. And So I would have to go and be like, oh crap, okay, what measure are we on now? And I need to copy over the synths for the chorus here. It was very weird. So when I got like Cakewalk, I was like, wow, this is amazing. You can just copy and paste. And then dive in, and piano roll was like a new thing to me. I was like, this is so much easier to mess around and tweak things.
So-
Okay. And then from Cakewalk, was it the eventual jump to Cubase?
Yes. So I was in a band in Austin, and we didn't use sequencers much. That was it was called Maximum Coherence During Flying. And those guys were the guys that I started the punk band in Denver with. They moved to Austin. And we started doing this kind of proggy space rock type stuff.
90s Mars rock.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
year was that? I want to know if I was here.
That's going to be 90. I'm going to guess 93, 94.
A little bit later, I
Okay.
think we started Maxco, and we called it Maxco because the name Maximum Coherence During Flying is hella long. We started in 95, and then we moved up here to Seattle as the band, and then we did that until about 2002 with all of us. And that included Brian, who's in Jupe Jupe. That's how I met Brian. He joined that band as a guitar player and sax player.
Then we would have maybe just missed each other, but was Mars Music a thing down here when you were there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm
I
so
lived
sad that
not
place
too far from there.
is gone.
I forgot about that place. There was a cool record store in that area too, but I don't think that came out until like 98 or something.
Yeah.
I remember Mars Music off of Rio Grande.
Yeah.
Red River.
Red River.
Yeah. I remember that. I used to go there all the time.
Mm-hmm. Well, they had a
So-
very generous return policy. Maybe
Okay.
that's why they're not in business anymore.
Buy the CD, rip it, return it.
Well, no,
Yay.
no, they were Guitar Center basically,
Yeah.
and I guess the statute of limitations has passed. But we had a cellist in our band, and he
Uh-huh.
would he loved this little thing called a boomerang, and so he'd plug his cello into the boomerang, he'd play something, and then it would repeat and repeat, and he'd build on top of it and whatever. And so he would
cool.
go buy it, and then he would return it after a couple of gigs for full price. And
Yeah.
then if there was another gig coming up, he'd go buy it again. And then, but he kept basically it was free rental, right? So
Yeah. Great.
yeah, except not. I mean, you can't stay in business. You can't pay the electric bill and air conditioning and all that, and
Yeah.
just be a
guess
free
who-
rental place.
Guess who's not around anymore?
Yeah, I know.
Did that space eventually become a guitar center, or did it just go away?
It is a fitness place now. I think it's a
Of course,
24-hour
yeah.
fitness or something. Yeah,
Okay.
right there behind
Okay.
the HEB.
Familiar. It was a
Yeah.
long time ago. And
Yeah.
I worked at UT, so I would just drive over to UT from there.
What? Where did you work?
I worked at a media lab in the engineering department.
Okay, so close. I work at the College of Communication right now.
Oh, okay. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. We might know some people.
Probably do. Yeah.
I have friends that still work there.
Cool.
I have a friend in admissions, and I have a friend that still works at the media lab. So
Interesting. I thought we were going to the West Coast today, but apparently not.
it's very rainy today. Actually, it's not. It stopped raining. We're in the middle of an atmospheric river. Do y'all have those things?
No.
What is that?
So that's, I never heard of these things until a couple of years ago, and now it's like this massive buzzword. I don't know. It just rains a whole bunch.
I thought that was just called Seattle.
Yeah. No, it's like incredible rain. It's not like heavy rain like Texas rain. It's just you're in a cloud like forever, and everything gets super soggy.
That's called Ireland.
It's the same weather.
There
Yeah.
you go. That's cool.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What's
Yeah, I'm glad you understand the difference there, because people in Seattle, when I was up there for work, were like, "Yeah, it doesn't rain like this in Texas." I'm like, we actually get more rain per year than you do, but you
Yeah.
just get it constantly. And we
We
get it
get
all
it-
at once.
Yeah, and your rain is like you sit outside the porch and watch
Watch
this
trees
violent
get destroyed.
experience. I remember one time I was in Austin. We were watching it outside. like having beers and stuff, and I saw a stick bug, and I was like, "Are you serious? There's stick bugs in Texas?" I had no idea. And yeah, the humidity and all that stuff. I guess
Yep, they're here.
yeah, pretty
All
cool.
right, you rope us back here.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
I got lost. We're
So
going down sequencers, and you got into Cubase. Do you remember what version you started on that?
maybe
Okay. Was it VST?
5.
it did have plugins.
Okay.
But by the time I moved to Cubase, there were plugins. Before that, I was using Cakewalk. Ryan and I had this project, a side project called Tin Man and Falcon, where we were doing like a musical, and we had Acid. And Brian did a tremendous amount of work on that in Acid. And he was like laying down like sax lines and guitar lines in Acid. And the problem with that one is it didn't have MIDI. So I had to, any of the synth stuff, we would have to track in Cubase, then record it, and then import it into Acid. And it probably was doing like horrible things to the audio, but it was like, it kind of got us more familiar with doing synth music again. And then we ended up meeting these people, because we were still doing the maximum coherence thing up here, and we met these people at a World Cup game, and they had been in a previous band, this guy Pat, and Brian and Pat started talking about maybe starting more of a pop band instead of breaking, because I think we were getting kind of tired doing the prog stuff, and he had been in a previous band up here with a guy named Kirk and a guy named Jared, and they had a singer Candy and another guy. They were called the Cinematics, and so they were looking, that had just broken up. So we met them, met over beers one night, and decided to start a synth pop band where it was all electronic except for we had 2 guitars. So Brian was on guitar, and then Pat was on guitar. Everything else was electronic, and then we had 2 singers. And we did that up here for about 5 years, and that was really fun. That was like a great experience to go from kind of the more arty, weird side to do like stuff that was more dancey and fun, get people moving, and it was fun. And that kind of changed how we wanted to do music after that, I think.
So you've been in a couple of bands where there's mostly synthesizer, and how is that whenever you walk into play a gig somewhere? Are you bringing like a direct box for every single synth? Or are you bringing a mixer and then it mix it down to mono and you're like, here you go, bud. I know you don't know how to deal with us. Or or is the sound guy just like, oh, these guys again, go find all our direct boxes, you know?
I think when we were first doing like when we were a synth pop band in Seattle in 2002, there were some guys like, oh God, what are these guys doing? Because, everybody was still grunged out. Yeah, so what we learned quickly is do not use MIDI live and do not bring a bunch of gear and try to hope that it all works. We ran into a couple problems. And one problem was with the direct box. So Kirk in Pleasurecraft and I figured out, let's redo this. And so we bought a Mackie 1202 and started using, this is like right when the iPod came out. And so we were like, oh, we could get 16-bit tracks out of this. So why don't we just record our backing tracks onto this and play it out of the mixer, and then we'll hook up our synths to the mixer also. So all we're giving the sound guy is a direct out with XLR. So he doesn't have to do anything but plug in. And that worked out great. It also opened up the door to using, different kinds of synths live. So I could then use Jupiter sounds or whatever sounds I wanted and have it sound exactly how I wanted it to sound live. And then we had like, the live guitars with Brian and Pat. So that was a very live experience. I mean, not compared to like the rock bands we played with, but it worked well. And the sound guys were actually pretty accommodating. And then about that same time, a lot more bands were kind of doing that. Like there were more synthy bands popping up, and also techno and hip hop changed what people expected live, where it was like, oh, I don't need to see everybody playing everything.
Right.
I know some people are purists with that, but
The idea of backing tracks can sometimes be like, oh, come on now. That's just, glorified karaoke, but it is what you make it to be, right? So if you want to have 20 synths on stage and you like setting up like a drummer, then cool, man.
Have at it. Yeah. Totally. Yeah, I mean, it's cool. It's as long as there's something live happening. For me personally, I'm even like my friends who do electronic music, they're still usually tweaking things, or they'll bring little synthesizers and stuff like that
Right.
to adjust the music. So it is like somewhat live. It's hard because like how are you gonna do a sequencer live? Like it's not if you have a live drummer triggering that stuff. I mean, you could do it if you really, really wanted to focus on that and you had
Right.
help.
Able to.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And gosh, these days, I mean, I don't even know how much. Like when you go to a stadium show, I'm like, I have no idea what's live and what's not. Like I think
Right.
sometimes they're pumping in vocal tracks. If it's a synth pop band, I'm just like, I don't really care. But if it's like a rock band, it's like, how much of this is live? Even in metal, like lots of backing tracks in metal now.
Yeah.
We do sometimes do sets where we don't have any backing tracks. That's kind of fun too. But usually we have some backing tracks for the synths that I can't do live because I'm singing.
I want to take us off, and I'm sorry about this, Nimix, but I want to divert a little bit, and just for me, what places did you play? Do you remember playing in Austin?
Oh, yeah, sure. Okay. The biggest place we played was Liberty Lunch.
Oh,
That was
when
a
it
fun
was still
show.
here. Yay.
Yeah, yeah. We played the Electric Lounge a lot. That was probably like the place we played the most. We played Stubbs once for a KVRX event. Um, we played. See, now that you're making me go way back in my brain. We played the Flamingo Cantina once or twice. Um, we played, was it called like the Red Fly or something like that? What's that place on Red
Red,
River?
Red-Eyed Fly or something like
That
that.
place. Yeah, we
Yeah.
played there once or
Uh,
twice. Yeah.
Mohawk?
Yeah.
No, we never played Mohawk. We never played emos. We weren't
played,
like, oh, you did?
yeah, we played Emos, and then they changed their name. We played Steamboat, and then Steamboat closed
Oh,
2
cool.
weeks later.
What was your band called?
We were called Who Knew? WHUGNU.
Okay,
And
cool.
I don't know, how do you describe? Well, we called ourselves a breakfast rock. Um, and there's
Oh, wait a minute. I think we played with you guys once. Did you guys ever
probably,
play Stubbs?
I think we did, yes.
I think we played Stubbs together.
Yeah.
Because you played with some guys that I'd recognized from Denton.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, we played a show together.
Yeah. How about that?
The hell?
That's so funny. That was in like 2020, I think. That was like one of our last
No. Then it wouldn't have been us because
Sorry.
no,
No, sorry. 2000. Not
2000.
2020.
Yes.
Yes.
Then
2000, yeah.
probably yes.
Yeah, we totally played with you guys. That's so funny. Wow, what a small world.
Yeah. Funny.
Crazy. Yeah. Because that breakfast rock, I remember that, and I was like, "What is that?" But I mean, I feel like in Austin, it was like you were kind of required to do something bizarre and try to create your own thing. Whereas like Seattle wasn't so friendly to our music.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the perfect rock to have brunch to.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, I
That's what it
mean,
was.
yeah, I don't know. We were trying to come up with some, because like we worked hard on it. We think we're rock and rollers, but like honestly, it's not heavy metal, and it's not, not nothing. You can't like thrash out to it or anything like that. All our heroes were like Phil Collins and Peter Gabriel, and those
Yeah.
guys were starting to kind of listen. You could hear them in elevators, like you're starting to hear them, and you're like, well, I guess we're kind of easy listening. What's a kind word for that? Breakfast rock? Cool. Okay.
That's like the end of all prog. At the end of
Right.
the prog line, you always end up being breakfast rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That's funny.
Yes.
Now, I wanted to see if you had a similar path where being the synth guy in the band defaulted you to being kind of the pro audio producer recorder guy in bands when y'all were like, hey, we want to record this weekend.
Not initially. That was our drummer, and with Maxco, our drummer was kind of the audio guy. And then,
Okay.
and I seriously, I kind of had stepped out of the the sequencer world and all that because I was doing so much live keyboard work and singing. So when we started Pleasurecraft, I kind of had to learn how to do that with using modern equipment and all that. And by that time I had the Jupiter and the Virus, so I was like, I have to figure out how to work on this. So and we all were kind of learning too. Kirk had already been doing some sequencing, and I was kind of watching what he was doing, and then he was kind of watching some of the synth stuff I was doing. And we just kind of learned and evolved. And then by the time the end of Pleasurecraft was done, Brian and I had learned a lot about how to do Cubase and sequence and stuff like that. So when we started Jupe Jupe, we figured it all out. We'd gotten at least as much as we could do, the kind of music we wanted to make. We were comfortable doing it.
Well, let's talk about Jupe Jupe. First, let's start with the name.
Okay, so Jupe Jupe. So we were trying to figure out a name, and we didn't want it. It's always a hard thing, and so it's kind of an inside joke because Jupe Jupe was when I moved to Dallas, the Dallas area or Plano or whatever, and I met my friend Jeff Shoemaker and Robbie Ryan, and we were all friends, and like the three of us were the most synth nerdy of that group of people. Who I'm friends with all those people too. They're all great people. We would go to, we would go dancing or whatever, Xenon or whatever. That's like industry. Anyway, that was like industrial music was really big, and bands like Greater Than One were sampling Kraftwerk, and we were hearing all those kind of like zap sounds, those choop choop sounds. So Jeff called them. I'm pretty sure Jeff came up with that name. And he called them Jupe Jupes. And so that just became the name for anytime we wanted to use that sound. All the way through Pleasurecraft, all the way into, And anytime you wanted that kind of electro zap sound, we just called them Jupe Jupes. So that was like, oh, well, maybe we should call the band Jupe Jupe. Because we knew we were going to be pretty synth heavy, and it sounded fun, and it kind of, so we went with that.
Great.
But it also happens to mean skirt in French. So it's,
yeah, that makes sense because I was looking for the origin of Jupe, and I did an internet search. I put my young Jupe Jupe, and then I started getting all these young girls in schoolgirl skirts as the results, and I'm going, what the hell is this? So
it's a different My Young.
It is. And then I was thinking, thinking of the name My Young, but My Young Jupe Jupe. Okay, yeah. Do or don't that up, whatever your preference is.
There's a couple other Jupe bands too. There's some Jupe guy that's like does like more, I don't know what he does, like hip hop or dance. And then there's a band out of Toronto called Les Jupes, and we actually played with them. So like when we first started, so it was like Les Jupes, Jupe Jupe, and then some other band. I can't remember who it was, but it was funny.
So they were the Skirts.
I guess the Skirts. Yeah,
in French. Okay.
Yeah,
that's
and
hilarious.
Brian and I listen to a lot of like music from, pop from France and all that kind of stuff. So there is like I kind of like that fact that there's a little bit of a hint to the French pop world.
All the videos I looked at, the music I listened to, I mean, you've got a live drummer, two guitars, and you.
Yep.
And you're
Brian,
playing bass or synth fills or whatever and singing.
Yeah, I play synth and sing live, and that's all I do. I do not play bass or guitar. That is.
Well, sorry. When I said bass, I meant you were playing a bass part.
Oh yeah, sure. Yes, we will have synth bass and stuff like that. Yeah, and then Brian plays bass. So on the record, and now just we'll either use a live bass or a synth bass to fill in that spot. So it's kind of like we just don't have a bass player. Brian is our bass player, but he's busy playing guitar and sax, so live. So usually the bass is, if whatever I'm not playing is pre-recorded.
So is the sequencing aspect of Jupe Jupe just kind of in the writing and ideas phase at this point? Because you don't clearly, like you're talking about, you're not doing anything live with it.
Oh no, we are using. Yeah, we have live tracks that are.
Oh, you are? Okay.
And stuff. Yeah, for the bass mainly, and other things that I can't play while I'm singing because you just can't do all that.
Are you using Ableton or anything like that, or is it just you have really good players that know that this track is leading and don't mess up?
That's what it is. Yeah. I mean,
Oh, okay.
Jared's an incredible drummer, and yeah. I mean,
So you don't do like one left side is click track and then right side is.
no, we do that.
Oh,
Yeah. So he
okay.
has a
Okay.
click. He has a click to play to,
Okay.
and that comes out of the mixer, and then I can put my synth there. He also plays live trigger drums too. So he's got his live acoustic kit, and he's got these other pads, and those are triggering, electronic sounds and stuff. And we have done it. We had more than one keyboard on stage, but I think that's just we're just like, why are we doing this? This is too much. So
Well, yeah, I mean, you only got the two hands, right? And so,
and
like,
yeah, and I mean it's so live already because you have live vocals, there's backing vocals, two guitarists, the drums, it's all, and then some live synth, and so it's yeah, and sax, of course.
So what is the non-live stuff being generated from?
It's just a WAV file.
Okay.
yeah, backing tracks.
Okay.
Yeah, backing tracks. Yeah.
So because I was wondering, I was like, you're actually sequencing live? No.
No,
Okay.
no,
No, not
Oh,
live.
gosh.
Yeah.
Sequence ahead of time, printed tape.
There's an occasion where I might use like a sound that has an arpeggiator or something on it, but it's you always run into sync issues with that because there's no MIDI going to the keyboard. So
Right. Okay.
and
Just making sure.
and yeah. We haven't started doing like we have an iPad with software that allows us to do some manipulation of the track, but it's more for sets. So Jared can quickly pull up a song if we want to switch the songs around or that kind of stuff. But we haven't done Ableton. I don't think we have enough hands to do Ableton live.
Yeah, you might be right.
Yeah, I think there's an investment in getting that set up. I mean, once it's done, you can do really cool stuff, and the time,
Yeah.
the computer time can shift with the drummer or whoever's is setting it. But to make that actually happen is some heavy lifting.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that'd be really cool.
But then
If it was-
that's also if you want to use live sequenced material with live players, and when that time shift occurs, the sequence doesn't care. And if you're
Right.
not planning on doing that, then it's not. I don't
What's
think
the
it's gonna be
point?
worth your effort. Yeah.
I think what we would do in that case is we would probably just do that part that we wanted. We'd probably just do that without the backing track. Like, and we've done that. Like, okay, now is the part where we just play our instruments. And
A question that we talked, a couple of people we've interviewed before, is when you first cut your teeth sequencing something, sometimes, like me and a couple other people, you sort of deconstruct a well-known song, one of your favorite songs. And what did that happen to you? And what was your first song to kind of deconstruct and try to sequence?
oh, uh, The Chauffeur by Duran Duran.
Oh, okay.
That was the first song I was like, I want to learn how to play this. And I figured it out, kind of, and did it on the CZ. The hard part was getting the drums because like they didn't really have good drums. It was like, trying to emulate now I know is an 808. But
Right.
yeah, that was the first song, definitely. And then I started, doing that with more songs, and I was like, this is too hard. I'm just gonna start writing.
Yeah.
And then I just started learning how to, do chords and all that kind of stuff, and then lay down vocal lines. And I had a lot of time when I moved to Norman. I didn't have a lot of friends at first because I moved to Norman, Oklahoma in 7th grade. And I was this weird kid from Denver who was wearing crazy shoes like Converse. So I had a lot of time on my hands that first summer to just learn about how to write songs and that synth. So I think that was really good in a way. And then I would send the songs to the guys in Denver, and then when I'd come up and meet, we would re-record them or just add them to our next tape or something.
And when you say send,
Yeah. I was
there's
thinking
no
the same
email. It's you got
No,
a cassette.
right.
Here's my
Sorry.
cassette in the mail.
Yeah, it was a cassette in the mail.
Mhm.
And then we would like talk to each other on the cassette because we didn't have
Cool.
Yeah, it was too expensive to call. So I would get to call them like, once, well, probably like twice a month we would get to talk. I got to talk to my friends.
On the
It was
weekends.
kind of hard. Yeah,
That's
it was a tough.
awesome.
Yeah, so we'd make these tapes and we'd like make them funny and goofy and tell stories and then put, oh, here's a new song we're working on, or check out this song I just heard that was cool. But it kept us going, and
Right.
I mean, we did this literally until they moved to Austin in different ways.
Please tell me those tapes still exist, right?
Oh, I don't think so. I mean, the music we did, we still have recordings of the Bloody Earmuffs. And then we
Right.
became a goth band. We were called Morbid Vex for a while. So that was our high school phase. But then we got sillier again with that because it was like more fun just to be silly. And then I don't think we really, even Maxco had a lot of silliness to it, its songs and stuff, because I don't know, that was just kind of the thing we were into.
That would be golden to hear a one-sided conversation from back, when 7th grade or whatever, of yourself or somebody else just talking like, hey, I know I don't have it, long distance is expensive, but just that would be great to hear that.
Like, oh, dude, there's a fight. Oh, in Norman, there were so many fights at school. Like, we didn't have fights in Denver or in Colorado, or in Littleton. There weren't fights.
Right.
Clearly, Littleton got more messed up after I left. But yeah. So, but yeah, I had to learn that world, the Oklahoma world. Even though Norman was a cute town, and I have friends there. I'm still in contact from them. And then so.
Yeah, Oklahoma's they're all right. They're doing okay now.
We had this one. It was like, because Norman had this place called Shadow Play, which was a record store named after the Joy Division song. So like there was that connection if you just looked a little bit, and there were several good record stores, and my friend Doug and I would go to those a lot and buy records.
Yeah, that was the, eventually every once in a while on the radio you'd hear a nugget of, like, I was like, there was a New Order song on one time, and they said, and does anybody know what the previous band was of New Order? And they're like, yeah, it's Joy Division. I'm like, I've never heard of Joy Division. What is Joy Division? So I went to Bill's Records and Tapes, which was like the big import place in Dallas.
I know Bill's very well.
Cedar Springs or whatever.
How you
Spring
doing?
Valley and Coit.
Yeah,
and,
I was gonna.
you go in there.
We'll talk
and,
about Bills.
after Bill hits on you, and gives you the price on the record that you're holding up.
Of $25 because
for you, you're cute. That one's 15.
Yeah.
But I got Unknown Pleasures.
Yeah.
And I couldn't. It was weird because I went from, this is a joke, the singing, because I couldn't tell if it was being serious or not, to then like, those are some of my favorite songs. It was so weird.
Yeah.
But it was cool in the evolution of that. But that's what I'm saying, to find, there was all this knowledge that was out there, but you couldn't get your hands on it. And it was so rare. And it was, it's almost too easy today, which is annoying in some sense.
Oh, yeah.
But you know what?
Yeah.
I think when you had to fight for stuff like that, it really kind of differentiated those that were really passionate about something and those that are like, I'm not going to make the effort.
Right.
And that goes through to the, you're sitting where there are synthesizers behind you.
Yeah.
And, and Mike's still doing this. And I had a long absence, but I've since been getting back into this, and the guy that I was in the band with, he's getting back into it. And so it's just very interesting to hear you say that, because
That's great.
Every town had their bills.
Yeah. Well, every town has a record store.
Every town had their the hard to find record store. Let me back up. Bill's was one of a kind.
I mean, we would go to Bill's after school sometimes just to go hang out. Like, we got to know the guys that were selling records there.
Yeah.
And be like, I'd go with Robbie, and Robbie would come in. They all knew Robbie, and be like, Rob, there's a fully fine new Pet Shop Boys single or whatever, and they'd lead him over to the Pet Shop Boys single, and I was looking for like, more gothy stuff like Legendary Pink Dots, but he had all that kind of stuff, and he had like I remember like before they got the bigger space, and when they were in the smaller space, they were just like a mountain of like Wax Trax t-shirts, and then we just go in and like, which one am I gonna buy with cash?
I'd go get rare imports there, and then stuff that you just couldn't get at Camelot or Music Land or whatever, and then those huge wall posters,
like
the 6 foot posters or whatever they were. I still have a bunch of those actually somewhere.
Yeah, I think I bought a Roxy Music poster from there. Like, yeah, it was like a Subway poster or something.
Is that what they were?
Cool.
I don't know.
I don't know. I remember. Don't quote me on that. That's just what I heard they were called, but I don't know if they're really called that or not.
They were not the standard, Miami Vice / Ferrari poster you got at the mall.
Yeah, like when you're flipping through, like
yeah.
like and like I remember I was like see like the Iron Maiden ones, and I was like I wasn't a metal guy, but I was like that's so
pretty
cool. Eddie or what is that?
Eddie, yeah, Eddie.
Eddie, yeah. I was like, oh my gosh. And but at that
he's
time,
holding
I was like
fire.
And I was like, no, I'm gonna buy this picture of Duran Duran posing like like this and hanging on my wall instead. So.
Oh, I got Taylor Thomas in the bikini.
Oh wow. Yeah. Those were there too. I mean,
they were.
It was like a museum.
It was
and
like,
record bar or whatever.
Like teen porn was. We're going to Borders, and I'm gonna flip through the poster landscapes until I find the chick in the body glove wetsuit.
Exactly. This is before the internet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, way before.
So speaking of before the internet, there's a couple of things that and unless there's something more pressing that the other Mike wants to talk about, Robbie sent us some kind of bullet points. Something about Yars Revenge. We have to talk to you about that.
So Yars Revenge was kind of a project I did with my friend Jeff Shoemaker in high school in Plano. And Jeff was friends with Robbie and still friends with Robbie. I guess it was like, it'd be called dark wave now, but it was like kind of fantasy dark wave, I guess. So that was just the two of us. And Jeff had an EPS sampler. So we were using his EPS and then the D110 and I think I maybe had the Proteus when we did Yars Revenge. I can't remember. Anyway, so we did like, kind of synth pop with drum beats and loops and maybe a hint of industrial.
Nice.
And that was Yars Revenge. I think there were 4 or 5 songs on that. And we made tapes, and we made the tapes. I think we maybe like 10 tapes at my friend Nif's house because she had like a computer that had like a print software. So we printed them, and then we went to Bill's and like handed them out. I don't know who. I think Robbie's sister got one. I don't know how many other people wanted one, but we were terrified. And we were just like, well, we need to do something with this. So that's Yars Revenge, which is a good name for a band. I think I'm sure there's a Yars Revenge band name, which probably might, because remember Crystal Castles, that band Crystal Castles?
Yeah, with the little bear going around. Was that
maybe? I don't know. I don't know.
It was in like a 3D view.
Okay.
And you have a centipede wheel and like mouse and
yes,
is that what you're talking about?
That's it. Yeah. That's the game. Yeah, and there was a band Crystal Castles, and I think that they may have gotten some hassle from or something from Atari. I'm assuming it was Atari.
And then also El Fuckos Lunchbox.
Oh yeah, that. Okay. So
sent a picture.
Yeah, that's an old sequencer that Robbie got. I don't know where he found that thing, and I don't know how you sequence on it. Like anyway. So if that's the same thing I'm thinking of, right? Isn't it like a beige?
Yes.
1970s looking device.
I don't know if you can share it, Mike.
I'm gonna share my screen real quick.
Okay.
Just to make sure that we're talking about this is El Fuckos Lunchbox.
Yeah, that's it. And so I thought there was this is not Robbie's though, right?
He sent it to us, so I don't know, but this looks like a clip from a web page.
Yeah.
It does look like how in the world do you program a song with that? Or maybe it was like just a real-time thing where you played it and it would just repeat what you played.
Yeah.
No idea. I guess I'll have to ask Robbie about that.
Yeah. And did he ever use it? I don't know. Did he just own it, or did he have anything he could hook up to? He might have stuff.
He told us to ask you about it.
It's his sequencer. I think it's a sequencer. What if it's not even a sequencer? What if it's just it's like a
okay? I thought it was something that he was like, oh, ask him about this, like something that you built in your garage. I didn't know.
No,
that's glorious.
Were either you in Dallas in like the 90s?
We grew up in Tarrant County.
Okay. So Moby played at Lizard Lounge in
Lounge.
Dallas. Yeah. And we before that, this is like when he had Go. It was had just come out, the single. And there was like, Bills would always have these meet and greets for bands. Like I think we went and met 808 State. I think Robbie and Jeff and stuff met Front 242. Anyway, you just like wait in line and you go get a signature from these guys. And like at that time, these were like gods coming from another planet. And Moby showed up and Robbie brought the sequencer and asked him to sign the sequencer, I believe. And I think he did.
Probably.
I'm pretty sure it was Moby that signed I don't know, maybe the story's completely wrong, but that's what I remember. And then my friend Rob brought a can of beats, and he asked Moby to drop the beats. And so, yeah, it was it seemed like a better idea. But it was fun, like meeting Moby and then going to see him later that night. And then like it ends up like tons of my friends were at that show that I didn't even know yet. And then I think my wife was even at that show, and I didn't know her until, 10 years later or something.
That's hilarious.
I feel like that we've heard this same story before from someone else. Oh, was it? Yeah, it was a previous interview that somebody's wife was at the, yeah.
Yeah.
It happens a lot.
It's a theme where they're like, yeah, we were in the same stuff and knew the same people, but didn't know each other.
Yeah. Yeah. So that happened to me at Stubbs too, when I saw Ween. I was like, "You were at the Ween show?" She's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, we were there.
Well, yeah, he also said we should ask you about the MIDI cable belt, which we already covered that.
Yeah, we didn't have to ask.
Vogue, Vogue in corner. I don't know what that means.
So when I first went to school at the high school, I just moved there, and like there were all these kind of like the new wave kids and the industrial kids, and they were all like hanging out in that. It's kind of like the smoking area in high school. I think that was what that was called. They called it that.
The Vogan corner.
Yeah, because they're all, we go dancing. Like a whole group is like into dancing, and they're DJs, and yeah. So I think that's what was that, Level 5? Is that what it was called? There was some dance club down.
Was that the one
Dallas.
like kind of West Indy, but not you had to go under the freeway?
So I never went there. It closed right when I moved there. So I think they relocated to become Metropolis, maybe. Yeah, Metropolis, and that was on the other side of town. But it was like near the West End.
Okay.
So
I remember the Aqua Lounge because they would let after I think midnight on the weekends they would let under 18 in because we just wanted to go dance.
Midnight?
It was or like they stopped carding. Let's just say it wasn't like they were letting us in, but they didn't care. And so we could go DJs, and I don't know if they really had any kind of live PAs or synth bands or anything like that, but you could get into the Aqua Lounge after midnight and you could dance till 2, or maybe it was after 2 and they stayed up till 4. I don't remember. But there was a period of time where if you went down there, you could do that. But that was also when I could drive from Deep Ellum to my parents' house in Bedford in 15 minutes.
Wow.
I mean, I was going pretty quick, 80 or so, but still it was not, and nowadays
there's no traffic.
45. Yeah, there was, well, especially that time of night. It's like, no traffic, no cops, no problem.
So you were in Bedford. My wife's from Euless.
Okay.
Oh.
So I'm in that area a lot.
Gotcha. No, but I went to Bell in not Trinity.
Okay.
So there's 5 junior highs in that district, and mine was split. So half my friends went to Trinity, half went to Bell.
Okay.
Interesting take there. Robbie, one more thing that he said was your meeting with legendary Pink Dots / first brush with fame. Does that mean anything to you?
Yeah, maybe. So when I was in high school, I wrote a letter to Edward Caspell, who's in the legendary Pink Dots. That's like he's like the lead guy in that. And because like that was back in the day before there's the internet, obviously. So they would, mail your letters to such and such. It's kind of like fan mail. So I wrote him a letter and told him I liked his stuff a lot. And then I went to go see him like a year or like maybe like 9 months later or a year later. and I saw him at Trees, and I went right before, and I was, and, people were introducing themselves, so I was like, oh, I'll go up and say hi, and I just shook his hand. I said, hey, I'm really excited to see your set. I really like your music a lot. And he said, what's your name? And I said, Mai. And he looked at me and he said, Mai Young? And I was just like, yeah. I was like, wow. He must, I mean, photographic memory or just maybe it was an unusual name for him or something. But that was pretty cool. When I was like that age, I was like, wow, he's so cool.
You
And
know
it was a
who
good
I
show.
was.
Yeah.
That is cool.
I've seen him a
Trees,
ton of
wow.
times. Yeah. Yeah, Trees. That was good.
That was a
I
good
saw him in
place.
Amsterdam too. I've seen him in a lot of places.
Are they still doing stuff?
I think he is touring with different people, but they're calling it the Legendary Pink Dot still because it's like I think a lot of the original members have dropped out and just kind of retired. But
Well, you could say that about
kind
her
of.
too.
Yeah, right. That's like a ton of bands. So
It's Robert Smith and whoever's backing him up these days.
yeah. Although, well, yeah, that's true. But Cure still has a lot of the same members. But yeah, right. Simon's still there.
Yeah. There's kind of two things I want to make sure to get to. On
Okay.
on Jupe Jupe's bio page, you had it's I don't know how up to date that is, but it said you had 6 albums.
Yeah, we have five full lengths and one EP.
Okay. And some of those talked about these were recorded at such and such studio with a producer.
hmm
I'm really into understanding the nuances and difference. I mean, you say produced, that to somebody who doesn't care doesn't mean anything, and somebody who does care, I understand that can mean 20 billion shades of gray, as you know what that means in producing. And usually, like I was
Right.
saying, the synth guy or some other guy in the band is kind of the guy who's into recording out of necessity, or they were just into it.
Yeah.
How does having somebody else quote produce for this band, are you learning stuff? Are you collaborating? How is that working from a guy who just being in the synth world, just to make sounds, you have to kind of be in the production world?
I mean, for us, we're producing most of our stuff because we're already coming into the studio with most of the song done. And then if we're working with an engineer, most of these guys are engineers, producers, and mixers, right? So like mixing is kind of like the last phase. And the producing, from what I understand, is kind of a looser term. It doesn't mean the same thing as it used to. It used to be a producer is kind of like a guy who would get a whole bunch of people together and create something. And maybe that's bigger on the big pop world and maybe the hip hop world and all that kind of
I
stuff.
used to
The
think of that
country
as
world.
being kind of synonymous with a film director, where it's
Yeah,
their vision.
yes, it's their vision, exactly. So in this case, usually we're the producer working with the guy who's engineering it, and he's helping produce in the fact that like, well, we might have a line that once we start tracking in the studio, it doesn't work as well as we thought it would, and they might make a suggestion or just it kind of shows the problem that we figure out how to resolve that problem. Usually with arranging or maybe changing sounds or adding sounds or rhythms or I mean like in a studio, these studios have so many different amplifiers and guitars um and the person that we worked with most recently, Evan, his brother Eric, that he's a very, very talented guitar player and an engineer, and it was cool working with him because he was like, let's try this, and that it was really fun to like try to take slightly different directions with things that we didn't come up with. So that's kind of what I think the producer label might mean in that case. And as far as I go for the electronic stuff, most of the electronic stuff would be done before we go to the studio. So I might throw some synths in there, or Brian might have a suggestion and add something. But we usually do most of that beforehand. And then sometimes even some of the drums are done beforehand. Like Jared might come in and be like, I want to do this, and we'll mix in maybe for electronic drums.
Okay.
I definitely want to use this. Let's just go ahead and get it into a track, and then when it gets to the studio, it'll already be there. And then we'll do other percussion and stuff in the studio, or he'll do other percussion and stuff. Like we did this once. We needed a hand clap on one of our songs this last time, and so we just Evan was like go into the room with the mic, and we had all 5 of us clap a whole bunch of times, and then he took like one clap, and he ended up using that as the hand clap to the whole song. It was pretty cool. It was like totally unique clap sound, so that was pretty fun.
I was gonna say, yeah, do the Joy Division, the whole group clapping together where it's an actual hand clap. That's greatness. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Lots of stuff like that. And especially when we have like these live, we already have all these synth tracks, so adding more live stuff just kind of adds more rhythmic elements and that's more live feel, and we really like that. Like we don't want it to be, we're even though we're a synth heavy band, we still also want to capture as much of the acoustic and electric guitars and live stuff we can to get that human feel in there.
Did that process evolve over those 5 albums, or like, I guess, were you working with different people?
Yes. So the first record was mostly Brian and myself and my friend Trevor, and he has a studio over on the Kitsap, which is across the water from us. And so we would go over there and record it over there, and he had a studio, so we recorded everything there, and then we had it mastered here. Then the next record we recorded the drums in a studio with a guy named Martin, and then we took those drums and went back and recorded all the guitars and synths and stuff, and brought those tracks back in, and Martin mixed it. And we really liked that process, because just getting a professional person to mix your music is great, and you don't have to like mess with that aspect when you're just, I don't know how to mix drums and stuff. Like synths, sure, but it's just, especially when you write this stuff, it's good to have another person's opinion. And then the next record we did even more in the studio with Martin, and then the next record we worked with a guy named Matt Bayless, who's a very talented producer and engineer, and we did everything in the studio that time, except for the synth stuff. And he has a synth background anyway, so sometimes he'd be like, okay, you got to go back and add another synth thing here, it'd really help. So I'd just go home, and Brian and I would write something and bring it back in or record it there. And we really liked his mixing too. And then this time we wanted to work with No Count Studios, and that was who also own the label we're currently on. So we're really happy with that relationship with them, and that was a fantastic experience working with Evan. And I'm sure we'll record again with Evan because he's just great.
Cool. When did your last album come out?
It came out in April of last year.
Okay. And how does that work between albums? Is it kind of like everybody's coming up with little ideas on their own, and then somebody says, hey, we need to put something together? Or how's that working with you guys?
So we usually, like right now, after we release a record, there's usually like a period where we're promoting the record heavy. So we'll book a bunch of shows out of town and in town and promote that record. We did with the label, we did like radio campaign and all that kind of stuff. And then now we're in the writing process again. So I think we'll probably release some singles for a little while and then see where that goes. It all kind of depends on where we're at. Like if we feel like there's a need for an EP, or with this last album, it was an album because we were all in COVID lockdown, and we had a lot of time to write. So that was a great opportunity to record a full length. But it just depends. Like if you have enough songs, it's like, okay, well maybe we'll do a full length, or maybe these songs don't work and we'll just do an EP and use the other songs for singles or whatever.
Mike?
I got nothing.
Really? I saw your brain churning there.
No, actually I do have something. I'm looking at your desk there. I'm looking at a volume knob. And it's reminding, yes.
On the Apollo?
Yeah, the Apollo. I was curious how your journey of analog to digital, well, basically sound cards, how that started. And it sounds like you got into Cubase about the time that you could have a nice sound card and be recording audio.
Yeah.
But at what point were you like, man, sound blasters are not going to cut it? And what did you go through that?
I think the first sound card I had where I started recording the audio was, I think it was like one of those Ensoniqs maybe, or maybe it was like a Turtle something.
Turtle Beach.
Remember. Turtle Beach, yeah, it was a Turtle Beach. That was the first thing I had. and that was we're using Acid. And Cubase is like that process I was talking about for that Tin Man and Falcon stuff, where we recorded sequences and then putting them into Acid, and then played, all the live stuff was just directly into Acid.
Right.
So I think that was the first card, and then I got Presonus, I think, and had that for the Pleasurecraft years, and then I got a Focusrite, one of those red ones.
Yeah.
And that was great, but we kind of went all in because we were going to record one of the albums ourselves, because that's what we were thinking we were going to do. And so we purchased this Apollo, and it's been great. It's a step up for sure. And it has some cool models of different preamps. So for demos, I mean, we would use that for vocals on demos and stuff like that. But all the synths that are on the records are typically recorded through the Apollo.
I was going to ask you, because you have the Apollo and you can have access to the channel strip plugins.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a great thing that with that
Yeah,
little
it's
deal. But that kind of leads me to you're the vocalist. Do any of the other guys do backing or anything like that?
Yeah. They do backing live. Like Brian does a lot of backing for the choruses and parts in the verses, and Pat will come in too, and we'll just do that. Yeah, and it just adds a lot more energy in choruses, and wherever there's harmony on the record that we really like, they'll do that live.
So did you do vocals? Okay.
Yeah, on the record, I'll do all of the backing, all the harmonies and doubling and all that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. And you do that all when you're at the studio, or is that anything? Okay.
At the studio, yeah.
So were you doing vocals for any other previous bands?
Yeah, all of them.
All of them. Okay.
So I was the main singer in the very first band, the punk band, and then I was the singer in obviously for Yars Revenge, because that was mostly me playing synths anyway. So, and then in Maxco, it was myself and then Brett, who is the guitar player in that band. And then his wife Sonia was also a vocalist. So, and then it got to the point where Sonia and I were both singing. And then Pleasurecraft, Kirk and I both sang. We would just trade off. So one would be like a lead for this song, and then the next one would be the lead for the other song, and then the other guy would just do harmony during that part. So we were both doing keys and vocals at the same time. So we just kind of had to figure out like who's going to sing what. But it worked out usually, because like the songs that Brian and I would bring into the band would be usually sung by me, and the songs that Kirk would write on his own would be sung by him. And then we would just figure out, synth lines and guitar lines that match that. And with Jupe Jupe, it was just like, okay, now you're the lead singer now. It's like, okay. So I had to like get better at singing. But
that's usually the inverse of what happens, where I want to be the lead singer. No, I want to be the lead singer. Somebody's just like, you do it.
Yeah. Well, it was like, I think we were just like, well, if it's just going to, I was the guy that could sing. So I ended up being the singer. But I always wanted to be a singer anyway. That's like my passion. So synths and singing, pretty equal. Like even like my early songs, I was writing on my own. I was still singing on top of them. So, because it was fun.
Well, I like the Kraftwerk, the model. That was a great rendition.
Oh, thanks. It's kind of like a rockier new wave version of the model. That's a fun one live.
That was
we did
cool.
That for a there was a krautrock show here, and we were supposed to play like a couple of our own songs that kind of fit that world a little bit. So we did our song Piranha and one of our songs called Suspicion, and then we did that. We did a noise song, and then we did a Kraftwerk song. And we still do the model and we still sometimes will do the noise song too live, just for, just to mix it up. It gets people dancing. Actually, we played it at a Halloween show down in Olympia. It was great. It was fun and it's a longer, it's like a 6-minute song. So, but it's easy to dance to.
Not for radio.
No, we never recorded it.
So you've got a couple of albums out that you've certainly recorded and created a lot of music in your lifetime. Right now, I have songs of my band on Spotify that I put in. I don't put everything from everything we've ever recorded in my Spotify playlist, but I do have a couple that I still like to listen to, even after I've after you hear a song a million times, you're kind of like, but even if it's your own, what of your stuff still is something that impress yourself with?
So I think you mean from not from the Jupe Jupe stuff, but from previous
All
work.
of it. Yeah. Well, any of it.
There's lots of Jupe Jupe songs because I play them all the time. But
Yeah.
I really liked some of the songs we did in Pleasurecraft. Particularly, there's a song called Equal to X. I like that song a lot. And there's a song called Broken. And those songs I feel like were that because those are the last songs we wrote in Pleasurecraft. Brian
Oh
and I
yeah.
wrote. So those and then Kirk and Pat definitely wrote too because they added to them and stuff. Um, those songs I really like. Those to me sounded a lot like early Jupe Jupe songs. And there was
Yeah.
one song we were working on for Pleasurecraft, and then it ended up being a Jupe Jupe song because I mean, it might have been two of them because we were like, well, they weren't finished
Yeah,
with
that
Pleasurecraft,
happens.
so yeah,
Yeah, when you
so
move
and
from one band to the next, you bring songs with you, sure,
totally,
or
yeah,
ideas.
definitely ideas. And that helped shape what direction we wanted it to go that was going to be unique from Pleasurecraft and into Jupe Jupe.
If you had one song to choose out of Jupe Jupe that you were like, this is the one that's the good one,
Oh
and
gosh.
nobody had ever heard you before, you're like, here, listen to this.
Oh, that's a tough one. I don't know. Like right now, I really like this song on our new record called "Perfect Day to Die." I think that's a really pretty song, and I love playing that one live. It's not as poppy as our other stuff, but I like the message it has, and I think it's fun to play. It's very emotional to play, so I like that one right now. But there's several songs I like.
Which one do you think would be your most pop? Then out of all of the Jupe Jupe songs, which one do you think would be the most accessible for someone to listen to?
Probably something about love, or how could we both be in love? One of those two, I think. And maybe Eyes Full of Stars. Those are all pretty accessible songs. And we play those a lot live. Those are ones we throw in to kind of, yeah, get things going.
You have a traditional kind of closer.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we'll do covers as closers. So we do a Forest as a closer sometimes, kind of our rendition of that. And then we do Space Age Love Song. We have a cover of that. We'll use that as a closer. Or sometimes we'll do lately we've been doing like World is Fire, which is a single off our last record.
Yeah.
Let's talk about gear,
Okay.
because I think Mike and I are also gearheads at heart. As the vocalist in several bands, the kind of first microphone you acquired or you could afford to start laying down some vocal tracks?
The first real microphone, not well, probably the first one was a Radio Shack thing I bought at Radio Shack in Norman. The first kind of professional mic would have been a Shure 48, which I don't think they make anymore. And I got that in high school at Guitar Center in Dallas. And then I used that for a while. Then I purchased this knockoff Neumann thing for I think I got it for like $75 up here. And I used that for a long time. It literally just fell apart because it was a knockoff. And then I purchased the SM7, and then I have a Rode NTK, and that's you can kind of see it over there.
Mm-hmm.
I use that for like demos and stuff, and we did track with that before. But my favorite mic to record in the studio are those the Neumanns. Those capture my voice really well. And then the last recording, we did a lot of harmonies and doubles using it's like an RE. It's like another
20.
broadcast mic. Yes, thank you.
RE20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It looks kind of like a spaceship.
Right.
Yeah.
The SM7 you're talking through right now,
Uh-huh.
is that the typical old school SM7B or something, or
Uh-huh.
is
Yeah.
that the they came out with it where it's got a USB plug on it, so it's not that one. It's not the new one. Okay.
No, I didn't even know about that one.
Yeah, and there's like, well, because the one you're talking to through right now is it's got you have to have a really nice preamp or cloud lifter or something like that because it requires a lot of gain.
No, so does this one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
that
that's
you're
the one I'm
saying?
talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And so
Yes.
because of that, they came out with the new one that has a built-in kind of mic
Cloud lifter.
pre source.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, exactly. All the things.
No Count Studios had one of those cloud lifters, and because we were going through all these different mics to try different mics to see what would work best with my voice for these songs. And Evan was like, and I was like, what is that? And because we did try the SM7, he's like, and he explained that to me, and I was like, oh, I should get one of those because I'd probably get more out of the SM7 with one of those to not have to crank up because my gain is cranked
Yeah.
so high right now on
Yep.
that. I don't know if it could go much higher without it just sounding like garbage. So,
Yeah.
and it may not even sound good now.
No, it sounds great. You sound great.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Have you ever
It's
heard of the Cathedral Pipes? It's a newer mic company that's making tube mics.
No, that's cool.
One of our previous guests kind of turned us onto that, and I've done the paperwork research looking at them. I haven't, and they have some online demos and things, but he said he was so shocked that he actually wrote them and said, what kind of EQ are you running this through? What are you doing this? What are you doing to this post? Because it's not sounding this good. And they said, there's nothing that's been done to these files.
Oh wow.
This is purely off. Now I think they're rather expensive, but think if a Neumann 47 was being produced today type thing. And
Oh yeah,
Right.
the U47. Yeah.
or U47. Sorry. Yeah. So I'm
That's a great
eyeing,
mic. Yeah.
I'm eyeing those, but yeah, check those. Look at it sometime.
Okay,
I'm not
yeah.
promoting them. I'm kind of spreading the word out of curiosity and kind of hopefulness.
Yeah.
But Cathedral Pipes, I think they're in California.
Okay, cool. I'll check them out.
So going down the chain, so you got your first mics, and then you're going into a microphone preamplifier, or are you just doing what the Apollo has there, or do you have some sort of boutique like Neve or Focusrite or API or something like that?
So I do have, well, so the Apollo is what I mainly just use for everything now. I do have an old RMP
Okay.
out of Austin
Okay.
and an RNC. And we used that a lot when we were in Pleasure Craft.
Yeah.
Because it was a really nice preamp.
So to
and
bring,
it was a
because
compressor, so
I don't think Mike knows have you heard of the RNP or RNC, Mike?
No, I have not.
So RNC stands for really nice compressor, and then RNP stands for really nice pre. And it's just a guy who makes, and they're tiny. They're like itty bitty.
yeah.
And
this
then,
sounds like Mickey Delp's neighbor.
Yeah, with the cowbell or whatever.
But that's a company out of Austin?
Yeah, it's just
FMR audio. I mean, I bought it I think I bought those I'm dating myself, 20 years ago, I think.
Yeah, they were around then. Yeah.
Oh, they're not around now?
Oh, I don't know. I just remember back whenever we were playing in Austin, and a friend of mine came down who was into recording, and he was like, yeah, the guy's right here in Austin. Here's a really nice compressor, the RNC.
Yeah. It's very transparent, this one. And I think they have one that adds color too, that has a different name. But like by the time that was coming out, we were just going to record the vocals in the studio because it's just, that's why I don't spend a ton of money on mics, because I know in the end I'm going to be at a great studio and going through killer preamps and limiters and EQs, and it's going to sound cool there. Let those guys focus on that because they're good at it.
I just looked this up, and B&H, $185 in stock. FMR Audio RNC 1773, really nice compressor.
Yeah,
okay.
And they were affordable. They were affordable back then too.
Yeah. I think they were I think one was $275 and one was like $350 or something.
All right then.
But that was those prices. So probably now they're like $3,500 each or something.
No, this says in stock.
In stock.
How much are they?
$185.
Oh, That's fantastic. Yeah.
half
Great.
rack. It's got threshold, ratio, attack, release,
Yeah.
and gain.
Yep.
And on
They're great.
you got in out, left mono, right in out, side chain.
A lot of the studios that we've been in, and even when I took a class down in Oregon, they had them. They were just there. And then they're like, yeah, sometimes we use these. I mean,
Do you go into a studio now and you're like, hey, I know that my voice sounds good with a Neumann U47 or 87.
yes.
And then
Yeah.
also, I know that if you have a Neve, whatever number, or RMP or
Sure.
whatever, you're like, yeah, it sounds good with these ingredients if we just want to go ahead and do that. But
Not at the preamp level, but I definitely know some mics. But I always want to hear what they think too, because I mean,
That's why you're there.
different songs might. Yeah, that's why I'm there. So, and I'm totally like, help me, right? I've done what I can on the synth side, so it'd be cool to get advice from people who actually know way more than I do.
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
the nice thing about a good studio is an outside observer that actually is there to help you and the gear they have, and it, it's not banned political or anything else. Like, hey, let's
Right.
try this.
No.
And you're like, okay.
Well, and they're all in the room anyway, and they're all like, looking at me, and they're like, I'm like, okay. That's when you're the singer, you're like in the room alone, and you're just like going
Yeah.
through things, and you're like, is it okay? And you have to read the room, and then they'll talk, and I'm like, oh no,
Yeah.
they're
all you
talking.
see is them.
Yeah, all
Hey,
you see is the
hey,
mouse. You're
yeah.
like, press the button, dude. Press the button.
Oh, and then they have to figure out what they're gonna say, and then they push the button, and they're like, hey,
Okay, that was good. And you're like, whoa,
yeah,
that's
hey,
not what you said for 5 minutes.
right, or like, let's try that this way instead, and then I mean. But it's fun. It's like going through that whole process, and then it takes forever, but it's fun.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the old Radio Shack, which doesn't really exist anymore, and because I think everybody had the little 9-volt powered realistic mixer or a realistic
that.
microphone.
I had that.
One of my first microphone condenser microphones was a realistic microphone, and there were times when couldn't take super high SPL, but if you're recording like a nice little acoustic guitar or something, I remember thinking it's not that much different from this Shure 81 or Beta whatever, it and it was okay if you didn't have a ton of money and you needed something to do that, it was okay.
It was probably like the Neumann knockoff. Like, I mean, they probably reverse engineered some mic, and it was probably just a 50, like a 58 or
58,
something.
yeah.
That's what I use live as the Beta 58. I really like that.
Yeah, the Beta 58's pretty. That knocks out. It's got a little bit higher end punch. I'm a real nerd. Like, I like looking at the frequency response, and then I'll plug them in my computer. It's got the spectrum analyzer. I'm like, oh, is that oh, it really does have it, And so I'll measure them after the fact. And yeah, the Beta 58s are they have a little more. Probably you find that your voice is a little more airy. The raspiness of your voice is a little more punched through.
I'm a baritone, clearly.
Okay.
And so like getting a little high end in there is really nice.
Yeah.
Especially live.
Yeah.
Because I'm singing on top of like all these loud amps and a drummer and crazy synths. So it's nice to have that little high end just to get some of that air in there.
Yep. That's what's going on.
And since COVID, I just always I never used to bring my own mics, and now I'm like, I always bring my own mic. And because they usually have 58s anyway, so like, well, I'll use my my Beta 58. And actually, Brian has one, and Pat has one. So now they bring their own mics, and we all have the same mic, and that's great.
I used to never be weird about microphones, and I'm still not very much. But you don't really think about like somebody's mouth is like right there. And I had a brand new SM58, and a friend of mine had a show, and he was like, hey, the lead singer, I can't use this old banged up SM58, can I borrow yours? Oh, sure. And I got it back, and the front of it was just all lipstick.
That's
Red
so awesome.
lipstick all over it. And I was like,
That's like an album cover.
cool.
At least my microphone had a good day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. That is so funny. Oh my God. I love it.
I probably still have that around here somewhere because sometimes I pull it out and I'm like, maybe not that 58.
So is that an AKG?
No, it's Shure SM58. Oh, the one that
No,
I'm
no,
talking
No,
into
the ones
right
you're on
now.
right now. Yeah.
Oh, this one is a Neumann TLM 103. It's
Yeah.
like the baby brother to
Yeah.
the yeah.
I
and
used that on the first two Jupe Jupe records. It's great.
good.
Yeah, it's really good. And then is that Mike? You're using an AKG? Is that what that is? That flat mic?
No, it's a $100 Rode NT
Oh,
USB mic.
oh, now I see it. Yeah, it's just, I can't see the roundness right there. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. It's
yeah.
I will say so I
Oh,
work with the NPR type radio station down here and my boss got some sort of I don't know, it was some sort of thing that went out to all the NPR stations and they were like, here, we want you to blind listen to all these different types of mics. Of course, it's radio personality and not singing, but
right.
they came back and their favorite was the Rode. They really liked the Rode stuff. But in that same lineup, there was like a Neumann's and
Yeah.
everything else. And it was just like, well, okay, the golden ears have spoken. If you're going to be on radio,
They're great. I mean, I think we used one of those. Yeah, for in Pleasurecraft, we used a Rode for several of the vocal tracks, and that one's great. The NTK, or I think that's what it's called, the tube one. It's good. It's a little brittle. It's just slightly brittle and bright. In comparison, I mean, it's a great mic. But in comparison to like the Neumanns and stuff, but totally usable.
yeah.
Well, I think when you look at the cost, it's like, I can deal with
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Well, especially for what I'm for demos
for
usually,
this.
or
Yeah.
yeah, or for this for sure. But yeah,
You're sitting and I see gear. I
Yeah.
see some synthesizers and I don't know if that's a drum machine. I don't even know what the heck that is
That
over
big
your
box
right
of
shoulder.
knobs. Yeah, next to the Apollo. What is
This-
that? Yeah.
Yeah.
this is a Moog Voyager.
Oh,
Okay.
That's the rack mount version. This is a fantastic synthesizer. This is on every Jupe Jupe track for sure. Like it's just a great synth. It's beautiful. The Jupiter 6 is on a ton of tracks. That's up here. That's a Prophet Rev 2 module. This is a Novation Base Station 2.
Okay.
These are all great synths. And then the Virus. I use the Virus live because
Yeah, I saw that in the videos.
yeah, it's just kind of I can, emulate most of these sounds live pretty well with it. And I've had it forever. I'll upgrade eventually. I was thinking about upgrading it with a Summit, but then I got this Peak. So now I'm like, well, okay, now I have a Peak, so I don't really need a Summit. And the band got this for doing a review in a magazine, Performer magazine.
So tell me about that, the Peak.
So it's cool. It's a hybrid synth. So it
Okay.
has an analog filter, but the oscillators use, I think they're called FPGA.
FPGA.
FPGA. Thank you.
Yeah.
Dang, you guys are good. Yeah, so it's just a different way of making an oscillator. It's a higher resolution, so it doesn't have any kind of aliasing or anything like that. It's really cool, and you can do different kind of waveforms with it. So it's good. It's really cool. The filter on it's beautiful. Like the Novation kills with their filters. Like that Base Station 2 and this, they're kind of similar filters. They're just gorgeous. They're great. But I got this fairly recently, so I've only used it in a remix for one of our songs so far. But I've been kind of like learning how to use it more. And I also have over here, you can't see it. I have the Behringer VC340, which is a clone of the Roland string vocoder thing. And I bought it because I wanted to have an analog vocoder. And
What do you think of the Behringer synths?
this is the only one I've ever used. I've played some of the other ones. I mean, I think they sound kind of cool. Like this one sounds great. The vocoder on it's amazing. Like it's so pretty. It sounds like I don't have the original to compare it to, but it's definitely a gorgeous vocoder. So we used it on the album for sure. And it's fun to play, and the string part's good. I mean, I don't get into that whole Behringer battle because I just don't care. Because I write songs.
Right.
I don't. I'm like, if it's cool, I'll use it. Like, great.
I was going to ask you that because a lot of, that's usually the thought process people that we've talked to about it have gone through. They're like, oh, Behringer's making synths, huh? Well, I've used their other stuff, so
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
But in that same vein, everybody that has their synths going, I don't care about Behringer's other stuff. This synth sounds awesome, and I love it.
yeah.
they've all loved the synths.
Well,
They've
you can't afford the others, the used gear anymore. So
That's
it's
true.
like, it's cool
Well,
they're
one guy we
doing
talked
it.
to, he had the I'm gonna screw this up, but it was the Juno 106 clone
Mhm.
that Behringer made, and he said,
Oh yeah, the deep mind.
or the Deep
Yeah.
Mind, sorry, yes.
That sounds
Yeah.
right.
The other one was the Monopoly. He had the Deep Mind and the Monopoly, but the Deep Mind, he said that it sounds great, but that feature wise, it's got more features than if he had a Juno 106. So he's very, very happy with that. So
So my son is a keyboard player also, and he just recently he's in high school now, so he upgraded to a Juno X. So and that I was kind of skeptical about, the emulation stuff, but that is a gorgeous synthesizer. I was like, geez, this thing's pretty.
if you can't find or afford, or you want a Juno 106, but you want a modern version, that thing is perfect.
Yeah, and he's in the school of rock, so he needs to do electric pianos and pianos also. And they just threw that stuff on there too. So he's got like so many samples on there. So he can do like the total synth, and he can learn synthesis because I mean the Roland layout, like the Jupiter and the Juno layout for synthesis is so easy to figure out. It's great layout. I mean, I think that Udo 6 thing is also the same layout. Like it's just easy to figure out. And the Moog isn't too hard either. But compared to the Virus, which is like, whoa, you have to know synthesis to dive into like that kind of stuff. But so he has that, and then he has the other samples, which is great. So he's got like a great live board.
Anything else? Since sitting around
Oh,
you we can't see?
I have a little monotron. I have the new Bowie stylus.
Nice.
I got that for Christmas. I have an Ensoniq ESQ1 that I had fixed, and that's upstairs. And my son was using that before he upgraded to the Juno.
That's 30 years old.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool synth. Like it sounds very like industrial. Like it's like I don't know what it is. Like the keys are hard. It feels industrial. It's heavy. It's got a cool filter. It's kind of noisy in a cool way. Um, it'd be cool if you could upload, do samples, and run them through it. I think that'd be really cool if they could figure out how to do that.
Yeah, I had ASR 10,
Oh
so
gosh,
it
yeah,
was
that's
just
a great
it
sampler.
was just pure sampler. It had, great sampled instruments, but no kind of synthesis.
Did it have a filter on it?
Not that I remember. I haven't played around with it in a while. Like I said, I'm getting back into this. I still
Yeah.
have it. It's rack mounted.
Uh-huh.
We only used it as like loading sample libraries because it could,
Yeah.
if you want a grand piano, there's 3 floppy disks later in 10 minutes, it's loaded up.
If you do, you get one of those floppy things you can
Emulator.
install into it. Yeah,
Yeah.
because then you can just
That'll be the upgrade. You can put a
Mhm.
USB stick on it, but it does have a SCSI port. And we had a SCSI zip drive.
That's what I used for my ESI 32 I mean, I would like play live with that thing. I have to
Yeah,
load
so
up
it was
the
like
zip.
a
Yeah.
250 megabyte
Uh-huh.
zip disk. And I'm like, oh, well, we can get, depending on if they're sharing sound libraries, I can get 4 or 8 songs, sound samples onto this one zip drive. And plus it was faster through SCSI. So yeah, that's where we
Oh
were.
yeah.
But it would be nice to get a SCSI or even the floppy. It had a floppy on the front, 3.5, or the SCSI, but some interface that I can hook it up to here's a 128 gigabyte thumb drive. Have a nice day, and I'll load all the floppies onto that and just be done with it.
Yeah. And you have like basically contact.
You are the second person that I've heard say that they used SCSI Drive live, and that just blows my dang mind because I had SCSI drives at my house in my little studio, and didn't smoke, really clean, like but if you breathe wrong, then all your data is gone, like just sitting
Yeah.
there. And so it scares the bejesus out of me to think taking anything scuzzy live. It just blows my mind that it worked for you guys.
I'm curious if I load it because I think I have all of that in my closet. I still have my sampler and the zip drive with the SCSI cable and probably the zip drives. I wonder if they'd even work. Like I bet that I'm sure the sampler would work, but I'm like I don't need that. I don't need to have that anymore. Like I have that right here. I can just do that here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for some reason you don't want to get rid of it either.
That's right. You still have it.
Oh,
So-
I can't get rid of instruments. It's too hard.
Well, that's the thing. Have you ever gotten rid of anything that you regret?
The only thing I've ever gotten rid of was the Proteus. It kept breaking, and it broke right before I moved to Seattle. And I sent it to the shop to get it fixed, and they were sitting on it for too long, and I was just like, screw it, I'm just gonna move. So I left it with them. So I'm sure they sold it and they probably fixed it and sold it. And that was when I moved to Seattle. I had I just made the purchase for the Jupiter 6, and that was a guy just outside of Vancouver, BC, was selling it. So my friend Trevor came up and picked it up for me. And then so when I moved to Seattle, my treat moving here was also I got this Jupiter 6, so that was pretty sweet. So the Proteus is the only thing I've ever abandoned completely.
There's probably an out-of-date ad on Sweetwater for your Proteus.
Like $24.
Yeah.
We'll pay you
There you go.
$24 to take this.
The last time I tried to find somebody who could work on a keyboard, it was hard 20 years ago to find somebody who would do work on keyboards. It's
Yeah.
even harder now.
Especially the Jupiter 6. There's a guy in town. He ran a company called Synth Wood. And he's an engineer. He's actually he's from Louisville, coincidentally. But anyway, he was able to fix it a couple times, and the last time he installed what's called a Europa upgrade, and that put a new motherboard in it. And added a bunch of functionality. And so that was a pain. But I mean, him fixing it wasn't a pain, but like I was terrified because I was like, who am I going to give this to fix?
Right.
And I think there are a lot of people now that like they sell chips and stuff. So if one of my voice chips goes out, I can buy new Jupiter voice chips.
Yeah.
My virus I had to mail to LA to get fixed because the guys here just didn't have confidence to do it. So, and I can't remember what company it was, but man, they did a killer job. Like they noticed other things that were wrong with it from probably manufacturing, and they fixed them, and it came back clean. And I haven't had a problem in a long time. But I won't have that. I will no way get the virus fixed if it's like no, it's just too dated. It's like it just.
Yeah.
Oh, I also have a Blofeld. That's another synth I have.
I'm unfamiliar with Blofeld.
I've never heard of that.
It's a Waldorf
Oh. Okay.
and a keyboard. They have a keyboard version too. Yeah, it's a little glitchy. It's very cool. You can do a lot of really weird stuff with it. And there's like a big Waldorf Blofeld fan club.
Sure.
It's a little teeny thing. So I bought that originally so when we play, if we have to fly. So like I used it in Austin. We played like Cheer Up Charlie's. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
There.
Sorry,
my
my-
camera battery died.
my camera battery died. That tells me that.
Okay.
Hold
It's
on.
time.
It's.
No, he died.
I got.
Oh,
Hold on a second. I'll be right back.
He's
But
just a
y'all
ghost.
continue. Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, so I got that so I could put all the sounds in our set when Jupe Jupe traveled to would travel or if if my virus was out or something, I could use that instead. So it actually has saved me several times, and I have several sets lined up on it with sounds I programmed, and but I don't use it much anymore. I think it's in Brian's garage right now.
You got any sense that you have your eye on?
Oh yeah. I mean, but am I gonna buy them? Probably not. Like I would I'm still waiting for them to produce something that would be good for me live. Like I think the Summit is probably the closest live synth because a lot of the other synths are 4 octaves and I want 5 octaves and I don't want 6 note restriction. So I mean like that's what I really like about the Rev 2. That would be a great live synth if I were to exchange the desktop module and buy a full board for live. But I don't want to get rid of the desktop because I probably would use that if I have to fly somewhere to play. That OB6 looks really cool. I know Robbie has one of those. I didn't know he had one until I listened to his interview with you guys. And I was like, what? Do you have an OB6? He's like,
Do you know about the Behringer, the UB?
I do. I believe that Brian in Jupe Jupe ordered one. So
Okay.
I think he said he ordered one. I was like, oh, okay. So we might have one of those on our next record.
You get one of those, you probably don't need an OB6.
Well, that's true. Yeah, right. No, so I probably wouldn't buy that. I don't mean to be harsh on Behringer, but like when you have a synthesizer and you're carrying it around to clubs in a case, I want to make sure that whatever synth I buy is a company that can really and maybe Behringer are doing quality like that, but I want to make sure it's a totally solid synth that's not going to like something's not going to go wrong with it.
We don't know the ruggedness of that yet. I mean, it has wood panels, so it'll show.
And so many synth guys don't bring synths live. Like, I'm seeing more like the Nord stuff, because that everybody's using that live, right? Moog stuff is going to be solid, right? You know it, but
I've seen Nord everywhere and I've
Yeah.
played one live. It wasn't my favorite, but it did fire up and it worked. So, there's that.
I was looking at the Nord Wave a little bit, but I think it just doesn't really fit what I want in a synth. I really like I like the analog stuff. It's fun. It's really inspiring to my ears. So, and I love digital, and I use digital stuff all the time too in tracks because there's some sounds you just can't get out of an analog. But just playing those like big lush pads and leads and bass and just all, I love the sound of an analog.
So what kind of monitors are back there?
The Atoms.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have the Atom A7Xs.
Do you have a sub that goes with that or just those?
Not in this room, no. But remember, I'm not doing like final mixes here. Like I might do a remix or something, but I'm not gonna freak out about that. I try to stay more in the writing and sound creating zone.
Sure,
and
sure.
not the mixing. So I'm sure like a person who mixes records would be totally annoyed by the way I have things set up. But they're great. They're nice speakers, and they're really clear, and I can hear a lot of the textures and the sounds and stuff. So I can program sounds and hear what the heck's going on.
And what kind of headphones do you? I know you got you're just using AirPods now or something, right?
AKG?
Yeah, AKGs here.
Yeah.
The 240s, and I've been using these. The studios, I've been using these forever. I think several people in the band have them because they're light. They don't they're clear.
I will say my biodynamics that I love so much are a little heavy. You'll get tired after a while.
Yeah, and like you don't want that's bad if you're like working on something and your head starts to hurt. You don't want that.
Yeah.
So is there anything you want to ask us about?
I'm kind of curious, like what, like how this all started with you guys, and what your future is.
Mike and I knew each other going to the same church growing up, but we never
Okay.
really hung out. And even though we're the same age, he was a year behind me in school. And the only time we went to school together was high school, but we still didn't really hang out. But I don't know, at one point I asked him to come do piano because he's a keys player at heart
Cool, awesome.
on a project that I was working on outside of school. And I remember going to his house. I wanted to see his setup, and you knew one or two groups of people that were kind of into the same stuff, but they had totally different gear, and you wanted to go check it out and things you never heard of. And then I don't know, I don't even want to say lost touch. We just kind of bounced off each other. And then I had moved down to San Marcos.
Yeah.
And we were kind of in the Austin area, and went and had lunch and this and that. And then I don't know, about a year ago we met for lunch, and he goes, "Hey, just hear me out. I want to do a podcast. And I said, yes.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That was it.
I didn't let him finish about what it was about. I just said yes, you know. And then he was saying, let's figure it out. And like the first one was us doing this type of interview with each other because we didn't know what got each other into it in our past with bands and gear and things like that. And then we did a couple deep dives into gear. And then it was more like, well, let's start talking to other people. That's probably more interesting. And so we started talking to people, and we've basically asked each guest, is there somebody you think that you know that we should talk to next? That you think would enjoy this type of, because we're not saying, hey, this album, it sounded like you were depressed. What happened? And why did this guy leave the band? Did you hook up with his girlfriend? You know, we don't care.
Right.
No, we're gearheads, and we're just nerds with synthesizers and love talking to people to see what kind of overlap they have. And then there's stuff that you have and gear wise and things you've used and procedures that I didn't even think that I didn't even know existed. So
it is interesting how everybody has things. I mean, even within Jupe Jupe, like, because you know Brian has keyboards too, because he's a theory major and he writes songs and all this stuff. And so he likes to have more piano style keys, where I'm like, for me, I want only like for like pianos and electric pianos, I want synth keys. I mean, but so what he wants in a keyboard is different than what I want in a keyboard. And it's just because everybody has their own vision of what they want to do and their needs. And my friend Jeff and I have a lot of the same gear, even though we make completely different styles of music, because he does like electronic stuff and I do this, but we still end up buying a lot of the same gear because we're like, well, we really like this one. So it's kind of funny how that works.
This is the guy that ordered the Behringer, right?
No, that's Brian. Brian ordered the Behringer, yeah.
Okay.
So I guess he does like synth keys enough to order the OB.
I'm like, that doesn't have a piano on it. I guarantee you that.
No. I mean, the first thing I'm gonna do when he orders it and I get to go over there and play it, I'm totally gonna like set up and do the Meeintg, the Merciless theme on that, because I know that's what they used on that Flash Gordon record and the Flash Gordon movie and record. So I'm psyched to, and all those Pink Floyd records are using Oberheims too. So I can't wait to play it and see what it sounds like, because I've never even played an Oberheim before, or a Behringer-ish or a Oberheim-ish Behringer in this case.
I used to own a, hopefully I don't screw this up because I forgot what it was last time, an OB8, really large Oberheim keyboard.
Oh my gosh, wow.
I went through a big acquiring phase in the mid 90s, and I did get rid of that, and I regret getting rid of that.
Why did you get rid of it? Why? Because I've heard that Oberheims are like, some people are like, they're really cool, but they kind of dominate a mix.
That's a good way of describing it. By itself, lots of fun, this and that.
Yeah.
And you could program it, but it still always kind of had that sound.
The Oberheim sound.
And I think what you described is kind of correct, where it never really fit into the other things we were doing.
Okay, yeah, sure.
We really want to get this new thing called a Clavia Nordlead, and we really want to get this other new thing over here. So we dumped the Oberheim, and then there were some other synths that we dumped, which I wish we didn't. We had a Pro 1.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. The Yaz keyboard.
Yeah. It's Pro 1, but it's the Prophet one. And then I had an orange ARP Odyssey.
Oh, cool.
Which
is that the Mark III? Is that the orange one?
I don't know. It had the little rubber modulation pads.
Mm-hmm. There's like 3 versions. Yeah.
There was a white, a black, and an orange or whatever. But the weird thing is, Korg got the licensing to that, and they make an orange ARP Odyssey again, except it has all the upgraded stuff. It's got MIDI and all this other stuff. So
it's probably well made, and it sounds.
I'm sure it sounds exactly like it, but it has all that was the other thing. We were sequencing stuff hardcore, so we would use these synths. We would have to play parts live and sample them and then put them into our sequences. I didn't have a CV gate sequencer or anything like that I could do. And so it was, there was the love of the sounds, and then there was, how does it really fit in our ecosystem? And it just wasn't working. And so we'd sit there and it'd sit in the corner looking cool. And mainly what we used them for at that point was, we're doing a live set. All these backing things are on DAT, and we go, the DAT's plugged into the 1202, and so are these analog synths. And we have some, like with the ARP, you kind of got a pre-program and then you can modulate from there. But if we had the Juno 106, you can save patches and still modulate live and look cool doing it. And
for sure.
And then the guy I was in the band with, Brian, the Pro One was his little deal. I mean, he would walk around with it on stage. You know, it's got instrument cable and extension cord coming out the back, because he could kind of one-hand it and just have his hand on the, frequency knob and just,
that's so cool.
So
that's a great sounding synth. They're like made of plastic or something, like, where they're really light.
It was plastic case. It was a black plastic case, yeah, which was weird because all their other stuff was, metal with wood panels and this and that. So, anyways, I have I did look at, I had a high resolution photos because we sold them on eBay, and they include the serial number plates. So if I ever find one in the future, I'll know if it's the same one.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool.
Well, to go back to what you were asking, like how we met and what do we do with this stuff, I just really enjoy kind of the nostalgia and figuring out that other people kind of went through the same steps that we went through growing up with synthesizers and trying to just figure out what the hell you're doing with the stuff. And yeah. And so it's just kind of neat. And then you hear things like Yars Revenge, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember playing that. And those things.
Yeah, it's cool.
So I looked up Yars Revenge on Spotify, and there's not a band. So
I don't think Pleasurecraft is on Spotify. Jupe Jupe is definitely on Spotify. None of the other things are up there. I don't even know if I have a recording of Yars Revenge anywhere. Maybe there's a tape in some box somewhere.
Pleasurecraft, 2 words. That's what
it's
I'm
one
seeing.
word.
Oh, one word. There's a Pleasurecraft 2 words on here. So I'm looking
there's
it up.
I think there was actually a Pleasurecraft band out of Austin right before we started, and this is such a small world. My friend's brother knew them in Austin, and he told them, he's like, hey, there's a band starting in Seattle called Pleasurecraft. And he goes like, is that cool? And he's like, oh yeah, that's cool. We're broken up. So you'll see a very synth poppy black and white photo of us when we were in our 20s.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, okay. That's a perfect way of explaining that. That's Kraftwerk, Depeche Mode, Joy Division, and somebody else rolled up into one.
Yeah.
Excellent. Pleasurecraft's there. Clearly Jupe Jupe's all over Bandcamp, Spotify, YouTube.
I think Maximum Coherence might be on Spotify. I think after I left, I think the other members, they kept going for a little while, and I think they posted stuff up there. I'm not sure what they posted up there, though. But I don't know if that's the stuff with when Brian and I were in the band, or if that was just the stuff they did on their own.
Not seeing it.
Yeah. Okay.
Nope.
Okay.
That's okay. And then any of the Bloody Earmuffs?
Yeah, it's not on Spotify.
Sadly, that's one of the ones I hear most, just based on the name.
I'm glad you remember the name. Maybe I think Trevor might have put something on YouTube, but I think like we would not want that up there because we were like little kids. We were like in high school and stuff. So
I remember when I got one of my first sequencer and first module, and I was just a kid, and I was like, you know what, I want to make a song that really tests out somebody's low end in their speaker stereo system. And so I called the song Bass Test. And
that's a good name.
And I'd would invite friends over, and I was like, oh, here, listen to this song, and they'd see me loaded up Bass Test, and they were like, oh, and so years later, and of course, I don't know, what was I, like 15 at the time or something. But
Yeah.
years later, we have kids and stuff. There's like, hey, do you still have that song Bass Test? It really wasn't a bass test. Like I had nothing to.
It's like the
I didn't
brown
know what
note.
I was doing. But yeah, it's fun. And the other thing to say about just because you don't think it exists, many years later, I thought I had lost some songs that I was like, oh crap, where did those go? And then I ran into an ex-girlfriend at a funeral, and she was like, I don't know how we got to talking about it, but she said, oh yeah, no, I have the tape you sent me or gave me whenever we were dating, and it has all those songs on it. And,
oh my gosh.
and she gave it to me. She was like, here you go.
Wow.
Yeah. So, it may still exist somewhere.
That's so cool.
That's very cool. Brian Mitchell, we had a bunch of tapes that we had made, and they were only, first generation only copies. And they were in a duffel bag in the front seat of his car, and somebody broke into his car and stole his car stereo and the duffel bag.
Oh no.
And to this day, I'm not happy about that because I'm going, damn it. So, anyways.
I think if I wanted Bloody Earmuffs songs, I still have the original tapes. Trevor over the kids, the guy who had the studio that we recorded, he has all of them, and I think he digitized them back in Austin probably. And then I think there's a guy in Colorado who collects music that has a lot of our stuff. So if I needed to get it, I could get it. But the story about finding or the girl having your recording is really funny. So that just reminded me of this thing with Robbie. When my wife and I bought this house, like not this house, but the house before, we had to like relocate all of our CDs from the other previous place we were living, apartment. And we are going through all these CDs, and she had like one of those Edge Club, or the Edge, like something from the
Bumper
Edge.
strip?
No, it was a CD. It was a comp, and Division of Beat was on it. And I was like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you have a Robbie Ryan song in your collection. And she's like, what? And then we listened to it. It's pretty fun.
Was it Checkers?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay.
It was probably like the Tommy Mac remix or something.
The guy in my band, Brian Mitchell, and I, we did remixes of Checkers for when they pressed vinyl of that.
Wait, what did you call your act?
We started out as Surge, and
Okay.
then we became Aubergine.
Okay.
But it would have been under Surge.
Okay.
There was like a Fox and Geese mix of that song that Brian did, and there was a Shifting Pyramids mix that I did, and
Oh, that's
and
cool.
some others, because I think they did vinyl pressing, and it was like Checkers and then a remix, and I think there was only 4 tracks, like 2 on each
I'm
side.
I'm sure I heard that in college because, like, even though Robbie and I didn't live in the same city, I was, his sister Laura was down there, so I was still connected with the Ryan family, and
There you go.
yeah. So
Yeah, no,
I'm
the
sure
Shifting
I heard
Pyramids
it.
ones, there was a crazy chemistry professor at UNT who you could
Okay.
watch whatever the UNT broadcast channel was, like channel 2.
I worked there.
Okay. Well, then, and it's like this
KNTU,
crazy
yeah.
scientist guy who would give
Yeah.
lectures that you could watch, and they were on at 2 a.m. So we'd come up from the club, and you'd put this on,
Oh,
and you're like,
wow.
"What is this crazy dude?" So we just put in a VHS tape and hit record.
Oh yeah,
And then
sure.
I have a box of cassettes and VHS tapes, and it's called Random Sampleables.
Yeah.
And I pulled a tape out of there, and there's this guy in there, and he's talking about these chemical interactions and how there's these little bitty things and stuff, and they get together for a fantastic agitation, and he's just saying this as a crazy scientist guy. And so I sampled all that, and that was in the Shifting Pyramids mix. I was like,
Oh, that's so cool. I miss like
that's funny.
samples in music. They should bring that. Like I remember we would go rent movies just to capture samples to throw in our songs. And even if the samples made no sense being in the song, it was still fun to like,
Oh, it's the Easter egg. It's like, oh, we all love Blade Runner. Let's put some Blade Runner samples in there, or,
oh my gosh,
or whatever.
absolutely. especially like yeah, early 90s
You know,
electronic music and
original Total
industrial.
Recall, you know,
Yeah.
start the reactor, Quaid, or whatever.
Is everybody online? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Or
That's
the atmosphere processor.
yes.
What was that? What that was like an electronic record. Oh, I can't remember which one it was. Jeff had it.
I don't know. Was that from Barbarella?
I think that was from Alien or Aliens.
Oh, that's right. That was Aliens.
And then it was I can't remember the track. It was like one of those ambient techno things from like the early 90s that would usually have like, they would go on for a long time. It would have some analog synths going and some cool sequence and then some pad.
The Orb.
Yeah.
Future Sound of
Orb,
London.
Future Sound of London, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good
Apollo. I don't remember. I can't remember all that stuff. It was constantly playing in the houses I was living in Austin because my friend was a DJ, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, background noise.
Yeah, but I loved it because it was like really pretty, and I was more into synth pop type stuff and Wong Goth and stuff. But it was melodic, and that's what I liked about it. It wasn't just the dance stuff, but I liked the dance stuff too. I really like.
I think that's right. Yeah, I was in synth pop. Depeche Mode, New Order. They shifted that direction.
Yeah.
Catch Up Boys. To me, they were really kind of touch basey synth pop because that's what they wanted to be. It wasn't like I don't like why people keep categorizing. They're like, we're stupid. We're synth pop. That's what we are. There's no fooling us. This and that. But they always had great producers, and at the time it was, I'm going to take your song, your notes, and I'm going to make it into this cool track. I was always obsessed with the quality and not realizing that I could never actually do that on my own, but it was always something to strive for. So
right, yeah, I could never do that with my CC5000.
Right, and then you find out like, what's a Fairlight CMI? I need one of those. How much are those? And you go to Guitar Center and they're like, do you have 25K? We don't even sell that here, kid.
Oh, well, and I still don't. Some of the sounds from those samplers. I mean, I'm still like, I think we were playing "Shake the Disease" in the car the other day because my son's kind of going through a Depeche Mode phase right now, and so, and I'm like, and I love that song because that song totally got me into that band because I thought it was just so interesting and weird as a kid. I was just like, what? How was that even made? But the sounds, I'm like, what? It's like an organ sample, but there's like all these other things that are probably guitar samples or what? I don't know what it is. Like, I still don't know how they made those sounds.
Yeah, it's like a light,
they may not
tappy around, fluty organ sound.
Yeah. Yeah, and it sounds so creepy and dark and like it's cool.
Alan Wilder was on one of my, worship lists there.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But it was always, scouring videos when 101 came out, pressing pause and be like, what kind of keyboard is that? Does that say EMU? Does that say Yamaha? Wait, what is that?
Yeah.
Because there was no information anywhere, man.
That was my first concert was Depeche Mode.
Really?
I was 12 years old.
What tour?
That was Black Celebration tour.
Oh, wow.
And I saw them at Red Rocks. So that was
wow.
my it was a really cool concert.
That's
and Book of Love were the opening band.
I got into an argument with a guy who his sister went to, I think it was Music for the Masses tour.
Yeah.
His sister caught a drumstick. And I'm like, what are you talking about? There's no drummer.
It was OMD's drumstick.
And then then the 101 came out and they're hitting like rolling pads.
Oh, sure. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. They did that at even the Black Celebration. They had these like, I don't know, they set up this kind of post-apocalyptic thing and they had bars, they were triggered and they'd smack them and they'd look, probably PVC things that the set designers had made.
Because it was one of the weirdest drumsticks I'd ever seen. It was like a stained dark wood and it had no tapered shape like, a Vic Firth or something. It was just this really
That's so cool.
I don't know, half-inch round, just a round stick. and it was,
A dowel.
you know, yeah, it was like a rounded dowel that was, you know, sanded and stained and urethaned, and I'm like, what the hell is it? And then I remember seeing when 101 came out, and they're smacking things. I'm like, oh, I guess I need to apologize to that guy because they do have quote drumsticks. Oops. So
They did say they did hit stuff.
they did.
I totally forgot about that. Yeah, that's cool.
You brought up your first concert, and that, first of all, that's amazing. That sounds like if anybody could have an awesome first concert, I don't think it really gets any better than yours. But
I think in our small nerdy synthesizer world, maybe.
Yeah. But my first concert was I got to or had to go with my little sister to her first concert, which was
Tiffany at the mall.
almost as good. Debbie Gibson. Remember?
Oh,
the hat?
wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. So,
Definitely
wow.
the same world. Yeah.
Electric
Yeah.
Youth. Done. Where was that? Was that in the mall?
No, it was what was the place in Fort Worth that changed names a bunch, that was kind of outdoor in the back, but you're under a thing. It
No,
was
that's
big.
Starplex.
Starplex, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Dallas. That's
Yeah.
Fair Park.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
That's
I
where I
call
saw
it. We call it Starplex, and then it was like Smirnoff and
That's
Yellow
right.
Pages, and it's Starplex. Just shut up.
Starplex.
I mean, the big one with the grass berms.
Yeah.
Mhm.
With the
Yeah,
lawn
Starplex.
seats. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the Cure there. I saw
Okay.
Morrissey there.
My first big boy concert was Cure Disintegration at Starplex.
I was there.
There you go.
We drove down
And-
from Norman.
Oh well, we drove from Bedford, but
Yeah.
the
almost as
cool
long.
thing, yeah, right, probably. The cool thing was, and I've been to several Cure concerts since, and what I
Yeah.
loved about that, somebody's like, "Oh, we're gonna go." I don't know the Cure that much. They gave me the Disintegration CD, said, "Listen to this," and I got into it, and I liked it.
Yeah.
You get to this concert, and this is what the Cure does, or at least they have done since I was at a concert with them. You go, they play the new album top to bottom in order. And then they're like, okay, we got that out of the way. Now we're going to have some fun. Where, you know, some other bands, they may play the singles off the new album and
Yeah.
sprinkle with some hits, and then go to here's our old era and here's some other stuff. But I like that so much, because it was kind of like, you know, I'm going to see this album, and I got to see this album, and it was really neat. And then when I went to the Wish tour at Texas Stadium, same
Yeah,
thing,
I
top to
was there.
bottom. Yeah, I was there. Me and my combat boots.
Cranes and Cranes and Curve. They were the
And
opening
that
band.
it was light outside. It was really early for some
was.
reason.
It was.
And
I
I don't-
remember Robert Smith came out in the
Cowboys. He had an Emmett
Smith's
Smith
jacket.
He
Yeah,
had a
Emmett
number
Smith
22,
jersey.
Emmett Smith, and instead of E Smith, it had R Smith, and he came out and goes, "You like my shirt?"
Oh my god, that was so funny. Everybody's like, "What?" And it was at Cowboy Stadium.
Or
And I
Texas
think that-
Stadium, yeah. Yep.
Oh, it's Texas Stadium. Yeah, right. Yeah.
So
And I remember like waiting in line at Sound Warehouse like super early in the morning to get tickets.
and who opened for them? Was it the Pixies or
No, that was Cranes and Curve.
Cranes? That's right, Cranes and Curve. Okay, you said. But that was a good show.
Yeah, that was an awesome show.
And then I saw him at ACL in 2013, then at ACL in 2019.
I saw them. I don't think I saw them in 13, but I think I saw them in. Yeah, the tour after that, because I saw them I went to Vancouver and saw them, because Vancouver's pretty close to Seattle, and I have friends up there, so that was cool. Because they didn't play Seattle proper, they played Portland for that tour. So people either drove down to Portland to see it, or they drove up to Vancouver to see it.
Where would they play in Portland? In Keller Auditorium or a bigger venue?
There's some outside venue up north that they played. Yeah, but last time they came, they played our new stadium here, and it was really cool.
At the Seahawks place?
No, it's a brand new place called. Well, there used to be a venue here called Key Arena, and that was like our basketball stadium, but the sound was bad for music. But bands would play there. Like I saw Nine Inch Nails there, and they were amazing there. But they just revamped it, and it's like a Jeff Bezos project. And so it's called Climate Pledge, and it's our new hockey stadium. They dug into it. They spent like an insane amount of money. It's like it's like a space station in there. It's fantastic, and the acoustics are insane. So I saw so far just in the 2 years, or it's been open for like maybe 3 years now. I've seen New Order, Pet Shop Boys there. I've seen The Cure. I've seen Depeche Mode there. I saw the Foo Fighters because some friends were going. That was fun.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
So cool. Yeah.
So when
it's a
is
great
the
venue.
next Jupe Jupe concert?
We have 2 currently on the books. We're playing in Olympia in May, and then we're playing in Everett in March, part of a little music festival called Sea Gaze, which is usually shoegaze, but I think the booker's kind of expanded a little bit into more like some post-punk and stuff like that. So he asked us to play, so we're gonna play that.
That's one of my favorite genre namings of all time. Was the the shoegaze? I was like, what?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, okay. There's a lot. That's a big sound up here. I don't know if it's big in Texas, but a lot of bands do that.
No. But the other thing about shoegaze that I liked is it made the emos emotional.
Right. It did.
It pissed them off.
What was that? What was that band? Bedhead? Remember those guys?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
were great. That was a cool band. I think I saw their first concert.
When's Jupe Jupe coming back to South by?
Well, that would be great to play South by again. We've never officially, well, Brian and I played South by officially with Maximum Coherence. That was an official South by show. But we would like to come down and play Austin sometime and Dallas. That'd be a lot of fun. We'd probably just do a regular tour though, with maybe some of our label mates. That'd be fun because I go to Texas pretty often. I mean, my wife was born in Austin. Her family's all in Euless, so usually we either like fly to Euless and drive down to Austin to see our friends, or vice versa or whatever. So we're down there a lot.
Okay.
Like I get my Tex Mex on because they
Yeah.
do not have good Tex Mex up here.
Yeah.
We have one decent barbecue place, and he's from Texas, and he does a good job. But that's
Okay.
it.
Where do you eat in Euless or in DFW?
Or Austin.
In Euless, my favorite place is Miguelito's.
Yeah. Okay.
In Hearst, yeah. By
Yeah,
Bell
you know
Helicopter.
this place?
I know.
Yeah.
this place.
Yeah.
100%.
Wow, I'm so impressed. Like I've mentioned this. Like I work with a guy who's very young, and he's from Euless, and he hasn't been there yet. And I was like, oh, you got to go there. And his grandparents live in
Well,
around that area.
Miguelito is running it now. Dad's gone, and Miguelito is now Big Miguel.
Oh, okay, great. Stay in the family. I think that place is great. I love that place. Mexican Inn's okay. I like that place. What's it? Gloria's? Is that still there?
There's a Gloria's, but I'm trying to think of the location.
Is it in Bedford?
No, there's a Mexican Inn in Bedford.
Okay, maybe
At
that's the one
Bedford
we
Road and the
should do.
freeway.
Yeah,
And then the original Mexican Inn is down in Fort Worth off Camp Bowie. Yeah, I don't know where Gloria's is. I'm racking my brain, but I've heard of it.
Well, I hate to be a buzzkill. I am worried that my other battery is going to die.
Okay.
So I
No,
don't
we can
know.
wrap this up.
Yeah.
That was awesome talking to you. I really
Yeah, thanks for
appreciate you
talking to me.
taking the time, and I love your setup, and I like what you're doing with Jupe Jupe. I love
Thank you.
the sound, and I look forward to hearing more of it.
Great.
Yeah,
Thanks so
same
much
here.
for talking to me.
Yeah, thanks for
It's
being on the
great
show.
meeting you guys. I think it's hilarious that Mike and I have played a show before together.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's pretty good. If you have anybody you think we should talk to,
Okay. Yeah.
not a requirement, but we'd appreciate it, and we'll let you know how this goes, and when we're going to publish, and send you a link that you can push it to all your fans and family and whoever.
Yeah, definitely. We'll do that for sure.
Okay.
We're good about that part.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.
Mike's on my